All right, you guys, it is so on like the proverbial Donkey Kong. It's happening. I'm here. It's David Wilcock. This is me. You've got me live. You've got me in the flesh. I'm still alive. Not exactly sure how, but keep on fighting the good fight. Keep on giving you guys good information. And of course, my Trump slippers are never far behind, especially this week. What has ever happened like this before in human history? I mean, this is just completely unprecedented. It's also just crazy. The whole thing is crazy. You know that. I know that. It's like, wow, really? What's going on here? But anyway, I feel really good today. And I'm so glad you're here. Let me put these slippers back on. So yeah, it's a great time. Let's read some comments. Hello, everyone. Blessings to all from the Texas Hill Country, says Steve Rogers. Deebs says, friends, fellow wanderers, everyone hit the thumbs up button and support our guy. Just a click or subscription helps him so much. Only 3,000 left for 500,000 subs. I don't think YouTube's ever going to let me have 500,000 subs. I think they're just going to delete them as they go. But anyway, yes, please subscribe if you haven't. Thank you. We'll try our best to make this actually happen. But yeah, what a week, huh? It's so crazy. What we've just seen is unconscionable. It's outrageous. Fit in whatever euphemisms you like, but this has just gone over the deep end. And it's gotten into the point of crazy town. It's literally crazy what's happening. And so what better time than to wear a pink shirt? I said, you know what? I got to keep you guys guessing. I got to keep you guys excited. You don't want to get lost in the shuffle here. So the title of this week's talk, as I just showed you, is Behold a Black Swan or Two. The reason I went with that title is because, number one, it honors the late, great William Cooper, who wrote the Behold a Pale Horse book. And that was a big, big part of my awakening when we first got started. But also, the Black Swan event was forecast by the Alliance in communications that they gave this week. Two of them. They showed two black swans. I think it was around May 30th or 31st. We'll get to those slides. But it's a very intense time. Do not do anything stupid. Do not get mad. Do not write stupid stuff online. Do not threaten anybody. I'm going to show you today that there are communications coming in from what I call the Alliance that are very unambiguous. And they're telling us not to freak out, not to worry, and not to have a problem with this. Now, I understand you might want to sound off, but you got to remember, if even one person screws up and starts acting that way, they could use that against us. They meaning the DS or whatever I've chosen to call them. So I recommend that you pay attention, look at the comms, look at what information we're actually getting, and not freak out. It's a false bottom. You know, this is the 5 pages of screenplay called the All Is Lost point, where the hero has to appear to be dead before he then experiences the third act, where he is restored and he finally defeats the villain with the help of the allies that he met in the second act. So, of course, I was shocked when this came out. I could not even believe that they were stupid enough to do this. And the reason why is that I understand the law of one and the principle of balance, okay? This is a very, very significant point that cannot be stressed enough. In the Law of One material, they talk about how we're dealing with an extraterrestrial society that is very much more advanced than ourselves. And it wasn't really until Michael Prophecies came along, which is the material that I brought through between 96 and 2000, which is now in 7 books available at thedisclosure.com. And we do still have our special deal. If you enter in the code REVELATION, you will get 7 books for $70, and that's much better than it used to be. And again, I really do sincerely need your help. You also can go to my old website, divinecosmos.com, if you'd like to donate directly. I had about $2,000 in there waiting for me last week after my last show. It was very helpful. I am still just clinging by a thread financially, so any help is appreciated, including your super chats. And right now, the main focus, though, is not on me. It's on making sure that we're all still safe and that we all still have a planet to live on. Let me fix my volume just a little bit here. I noticed that's a little bit off. Okay, hold on. Right, okay, perfect. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to talk to you about all of the backstory on these higher dimensional civilizations. We're going to pick up where we left off from last week when we were talking about the fifth density practices of honor and duty and wisdom and honesty. These are things that would not normally be seen of as spiritual teachings per se. They'd be more considered military codes or warrior codes, and yet we find out from the Law of One that this stuff is very, very important. That in fact, the principle of honor and respect to others is actually on a higher level than the principle of just being loving to everyone. If you're loving to everyone, but then you don't have courage and you don't have bravery and you don't have honor and you don't have a sense of duty and you just kind of do whatever you want and you're just sort of schlepping through life, then you're only at fourth density and you haven't even gotten up to the next level of human evolution. It's going to be a lot longer. When you get to that point of honor and duty, when you understand what you're really here for and what your job is, it becomes a much more refined life. You're not going to just sit around and do what you want. You're going to be very much more actively engaged in making other people happy. I did decide to wear a pink shirt today. Normally you wouldn't do this because of the moire patterns, but I don't think most people are watching this on any kind of monitors that are that old. If you do get funny psychedelic interference off of my shirt, I do apologize for that if that happens on your screen. But hey, you know what? It's a warm day. We have beautiful sun outside. I'd rather be outside in some ways, but hey, I want to fight this good fight. I'm going to keep doing this every Sunday as long as I can. There are massive forces of opposition. We've also seen incredible opposition coming up against Alex Jones just a couple days after this really outrageous court decision that is obviously going to be overturned on appeal. We have nothing to worry about. It's a train wreck. I don't even think they ever expected it to last. It's just really silly. But the point is that it's a test. It's a test for everyone as to what are you going to do? What are you going to think? Are you going to be okay with watching the rule of law completely collapse, with watching this turn into essentially an anarchic type of state? And then do you have the honor and the duty to rise above that, to not behave immaturely, to not behave with stupidity or violence or making denigrating, disrespectful remarks about anyone? That's the key. We got to keep it high, keep the bar very high, raise our own standards so that we're not playing into this game of trying to create negativity, because one of the main things they're trying to do is make you fighting mad. That's why right after they did this to Trump, they go after Alex Jones. And we're hearing, in case you haven't heard the story, I don't want to presume that you have, that he had to sleep in his studio, I guess last night, because he was tipped off that there was going to be a federal raid where they were going to go in there, they were going to lock up the doors, they were going to confiscate all of his equipment, confiscate his cameras, confiscate his set, and literally destroy him. Now, I imagine that this is probably going to be due to the lawsuit that he lost. If you remember, he's supposedly $500 million in debt, which is really, really silly because, you know, he's not going to ever be able to make anywhere near that much money. That's just not what happens in this field. In fact, I think he said at one point that the best he ever did in 1 year was like, I don't want to misquote, but I think the best he ever did was about 22 million, and he lost almost all of it in his divorce. So a typical year for him, I don't know, it's probably going to be a lot less than 10 million in general, maybe even a lot less. And now, as a result of all these things that have happened and all the legal bills that he's had, he's been in full bankruptcy. But that's still not enough. Now they want to just shut him down and say, oh, well, you haven't paid your debt to society from this court judgment or whatever. Well, that's not true. You know, there's bankruptcy laws, there's proceedings that can happen, and this is clearly not a legal thing to do. But again, remember, the main point is they want you mad, they want you screaming, they want you to try to create injustice for others, because then they can say, see, look, you did that, you're the bad one, you're the bad one. And this is a common thing that psychopaths do. They're always laying out bait, they're always trying to entrap you, they're always trying to drag you into something that will hurt you. And they would love it if you could get into a fight with them. They would love it if you start yelling and screaming. They get off on that. If you're having a violent argument with a psychopath, they love that. They want that every day. They want you yelling. They want you mad. They want you crying. They want you depressed. They want you committing acts of violence, which again, please don't do this. I'm trying to tell you, these are all things that we need for the final biting through to get us to where we need to go as a civilization. So I encourage you to just relax, take some deep breaths with me. This is going to be okay. I know it's scary, but it all looks good. Let's have some more comments just for fun. Kick Dreaming says, nothing could stop what is coming. Nothing. WGA. I watched it. Curzon Cack says, I watched Alex Jones every day for a year. He's going to be fine. He always said he'd rather just live in a trailer and not do his show. He's doing the show so others could take up the baton. I agree. Somebody said, Pine, have you seen the recent incredibly detailed video of a UFO sighting in Tehran? It happened a couple of days ago, multiple angles recorded, or is this just Project Bluebeam? I haven't seen that one, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, there's much more going on. Tarotina says, once they know your sensitive point, they've got you. Edith says, it's difficult not to get mad when you get a fine because you parked on the wrong side of a suburban road. Then you receive a letter saying you got 3 fines, but you only served 1 ticket. We got 2,500 people watching right now. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Max Kammerer says, at what point do we say enough is enough? Well, that's the thing. The match point. The match point is when you win a game. We're going to go through this. This is one of the comms that we got this week, okay? So this is really happening right now. We are at the end. You're not waiting until November. For God's sake, if anybody says this is all leading up to the November election, that drives me crazy. If there's any show that keeps saying that, I can't listen to it. I'm not listening. I'm not really watching any videos or listening to any shows right now. And I know that occasionally you'll see 45 say November 5th, da-da-da-da. Well, he has to say that, but that's not what's really happening. You got to look behind the public statements that are being made to the stuff that's being said in communications that are veiled by one layer of secrecy. I'm going to unpack all those for you today, and that's why I said don't get mad. Max Kammerer again says, what point do we say enough is enough? Brian Smith says, behave well, your social credit score depends on it. That's funny, Brian. Thank you. Vince Free donated $20. He says, I look forward to listening to you every Sunday. Thank you, Vince. That's awesome. Do you think Trump is still going to be able to be president, Jennifer Beck? Absolutely. I mean, he just won the election. That's one of the comms that we got. Will you talk about Rh negative blood? Probably not today. That is one interesting factor that may relate to ET, DNA. John Smith said to Jennifer Beck, he can still run his campaign. We just have to follow his probation rules. Jasmine says, spread your light with unconditional self-love. We got $20 Australian from 117 Chris. Much love from Australia, mate. Keep it up. Have you ever had astral projection experiences? Oh, yeah, that's what the magic pajamas are about. You know, I saved the pajamas from when I had an astral projection when I was 5 years old. And this is all real stuff. We also had a donation from F.O. Fortin. David, as always, you rock, even if you don't want to play us some guitar. That's funny you mentioned that. I am now working on my right-hand technique. I found some great stuff online that showed me that I was missing some critical things. My right hand was way too loose and not dialed in enough. And so now I'm doing a lot better. So I want to read some more comments. Sorry I'm late, Alex Jones would say, okay, let's start over. We don't need to start over. You just go back and watch again. But we're 13 minutes in so far. We're now up to almost 3,000 people watching. Peace and love from Michigan, says Michael JFF. I don't know what the rest of that is. Why don't I get any money to get through this? Shouldn't life be free for everyone? I am, says David, please consider growing your hair longer. You will look really good in a ponytail. Oh, yeah, that's a very modern style. I'm sure nobody will give me a hassle for that. Yes, please tell us about the O Blood group. But again, we have a whole different show today. It's very important we get into this. My good buddy, non-military, non-AARO, said on your Sheldrake interview, when he was talking about his grandson working test questions backwards, I test was info lingering easier to access. I'm not even really sure what you asked me, but thank you for the $5. Rupert Sheldrake talked about morphogenic fields, this concept that we're all connected with a collective consciousness, and I really do think that's true. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. I did actually use hairspray today. I still don't have the time or the money to go get my hair cut, but I kind of like, you know, everything smells like strawberries around my head right now. And this reminds me of the old days back when I was doing you know, my videos with Gaia, and you just don't ever want to inhale too much because then you smell this horrible, horrible smell. But here I am. I showed up for you guys. I'm not going to be intimidated. I'm not going to be threatened by this. Of course, I am one of the most prominent people out there after Alex Jones, and so naturally, it chills me to the bone to see what they're trying to do to him, to see what they're trying to do to Trump. And I don't like it at all, but I'm also not going to freak out. I'm very calm, and I'm going to keep doing my job. I'm going to keep calm and carry on. So Elmo Bullseye says, your hair is great, don't change it. Monica St. Denis says, you look great, David. More Power says, will we see any tech come out in the coming year? Well, yeah, actually, we might have a deal tomorrow. We are now that close. We're looking at somewhere between 22 to 24 million, which again, it might sound like a lot of money to you. It's very, very little for us, but it is enough for us to get one of our airplanes started, to renovate our facility and do a few other things. So we are like right on the edge of this happening. And of course, once we get some deals, I will be able to pay my debts. So I'm very excited about all this. Caitlin Reeves says, good morning, 5 degrees here in Victoria, Australia. Hope the storm regarding Trump blows over eventually. Well, I think it's going to very quickly. So I do want to talk about this. I do want to get into the content of the show. And we've given you some time to you know, come in, find us. We're now up to 3,000, so it's great. All right, so getting back to the main topic, I don't think that the deep state would have done something like this if they were intelligent. I think this is an act of extreme ignorance and lack of awareness, because the law of one, again, as I was saying, has a principle of balance, which is very, very important. This is something in which the negative entities cannot openly invade. And I wasn't able to find all of the quotes on this. I've been going through a very intense, obviously, ordeal in my own life. I've lived here alone for 2.5 years. You know, most of the time the weather is very bad. We have 8 months of winter a year. It is not fun to be here. This is a very harsh place to live most of the time. But right now, it's actually like what I usually would have in LA or Sedona. It's sunny, it's beautiful, it's warm, it's amazing outside. So when you do, if the negative were to openly try to invade, just have their ships show up in the sky. I mean, why haven't they done that, right? If there's negative entities and if they do exist, and if they have the technology to do something like that, why haven't they done it? Why haven't they tried to invade our planet? Well, the answer is actually simpler than you might think. There is a spiritual law. The negative already understands, ultimately, that the universe has rules. And in fact, when I was talking... let's do some Jacob, Uncle Jack here. Mate, there's rules in the universe, mate. You can't just do whatever you want, you see. You've got to have some perspective on this. There's rules. If, for example, we want to murder somebody, we can't just murder them, mate. We've got to lure them in through their own free will so that they start doing things that hurt themselves. And then, in the course of progressively tempting them to go farther and farther down this path, they eventually find out, mate, that there's nothing else for them except to balance out their own karma. So we have to actually go out there and add these temptations in, you see. So that's how it works. We have to be tempted into negativity. This was something that Uncle Jack told me many, many times on the phone. You don't have to worry about being assassinated unless you have been progressively getting more and more angry and mean and selfish and ripping people off and hurting people's feelings or being a sexual predator. All of these kind of things make it a lot more likely that something bad could actually happen to you. And it has to be that your actions actually in the negative are more than the actions in the positive. That's what authorizes your death. You have to authorize your own assassination. So Jacob was working for, you know, the top levels of the elite or negative elite, whatever you want to call it. Some people say, well, they're not elite. Well, yeah, right, for now they still are. But that's changing very quickly. So they have to tempt you. They have to bring in, for example, handlers who are going to progressively make you more angry and more sad and more upset. And they hope that eventually you will denigrate yourself enough that they could authorize your own destruction. So this is a very big principle. It's all over the place in the law of one. I heard it independently from Uncle Jack on multiple occasions. This was one of the things that we talked about commonly. This concept of what do they actually have to do just to take somebody like me out of the game? And so I'm never going to give them anywhere near enough of the negativity in my personality that would cause me to be at risk. I am never going to knowingly try to rip people off or knowingly try to get involved in some type of sexual plunder of another person where I'm misleading them into thinking that I want some long-term commitment when in fact I'm just interested in a short-term sexual conquest. I've never done anything like that. I have tried to always be as honorable as possible. This is a fifth density concept. You have to follow these principles of honor and duty, especially if you're going to go out there as a public figure, because of course there is lots of opposition. There's lots of stuff coming at you if you're doing something like what I'm doing. So you have to really be an Olympic athlete of the spirit world. Do your very best to live to the highest ethical standards possible. So again, the law of one talks about this principle of balance. The negative cannot actually just show up and invade our planet unless enough of us were to authorize that. So it works on a planetary level. If we, on a planetary level, if there was enough people on Earth who were evil and selfish, then you might have a Sodom and Gomorrah type of situation. In the Bible, you remember that everybody in the city was condemned, and the city was destroyed with quote-unquote fire and brimstone, and someone looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. That suggests it might have been a nuclear attack. Salt could be ash. So we're not going to get the planet nuked. In fact, it's very clear that benevolent ETs have stopped this from happening. The usual suspects did want to nuke the planet. They did have a massive underground infrastructure build out that they wanted to go to where they could hide out underground. They could, destroy the surface of the planet, destroy all life on Earth. You say, well, why would anybody want to do that? Well, there are people who have a spectrum of psychopathy. It's about 4% of men, 2% of women. That's the psychological averages that were calculated that I've heard of. And as I said before, they are people who do not have 17 different areas of their brain functioning properly. About 14 of them are running much too low, where they're basically shut down, and you might even have up to 20% or more reduction in gray matter volume, meaning that the brain tissue has actually died and shrunk and rotted. This includes the whole frontal lobes of the brain, the orbitofrontal cortex, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. There's so many of them, I don't even want to bore you with all of them, but it's in the book, Michael Prophecies. Again, we have that discount code Revelation, thedisclosure.com. Only until we get funded, which might be just in a few days. So once we get the money, I'm probably not going to make that deal anymore, but it is available right now. So that part is at the beginning of book 3, where I went through all of the top scientific studies, and I found one scientific study on PubMed, which is a government-run website that gives you links to scientific papers and journals, and you can read them for free. Oh, we just got another donation, Vega Gods. Well, I'll go ahead and read this because he donated $20. Thank you. Are you able to give an opinion on Trump if the alliance is assisting him? Have you read Incident at Devil's Den? What are your thoughts about Betty and what she said about the moon, P. Clementine, and reptilians? Well, I'm not sure if you're talking about Betty Andreessen. I haven't read a book called Incident at Devil's Den. There is a woman, female whistleblower I spoke about who was on the moon with reptilians. We interviewed her on Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia at one point. But anyway, you were asking about what is my opinion on Trump if the alliance is assisting him. Well, again, the Michael Prophecies talked a great deal about Trump and said in particular that he was meant to be, flawed. He's not actually perfect for the job, so to speak. The perfect person would not have given us what we needed as a planet. And the point is, it's a temptation. We are being tempted as to whether we are going to engage in hatred and negativity, whether we're going to judge and condemn someone else, or whether we're going to see him or her, whoever it is, as a positive person. So you got to remember that we are all being judged. This is not a random cause and effect universe where the cause and effect is just something that you see in Newtonian physics. There's metaphysical cause and effect. The things that happen in your life will be determined by how you think about and treat others. And so we've all been given this big test. In fact, the Michael Prophecies actually said that in 1998, if enough people had condemned Bill Clinton for the Monica Lewinsky scandal, that we would have had a pole shift at that time. That would have authorized our planetary death. In other words, even somebody who's as compromised as Clinton, and this is Bill or Hillary, right? I'm not telling you to hate any of these people. I'm not telling. Ultimately, if you integrate what the law of one has to say, Bobby Bajizik donated, thank you. If you integrate what the law of one has to say, it's very, very clear that we are all part of one consciousness. And I have some quotes coming up here in just a minute saying that even the most negative people will have to go positive. So ultimately, they will be welcomed back. We will hug them, the equivalent of that in the sixth density. Nobody is lost. The universe doesn't lose any souls. Nobody is destroyed. Yeah, there is such a thing as hell. You may end up in hell for a while, but it's not eternal. The word eternity was misread. It's aeon, A-I-O-N in the original Aramaic, and that only means a cycle of time. Janet Levitt donated, thanks for your weekly lives, David, God bless. And Soldier of Right says, donated, ascension, discernment, government, so much to take in. Peace and love conquers all. Trump 2020. There you see them going by. Caitlin Reeves, $20, says, you are amazing. Thank you very much. And we're celebrating her first super on a live stream. Thank you, Caitlin. So anyway, the point is that this is all stuff that's really relevant. How you think about other people. If enough people hated Clinton for the Monica Lewinsky scandal and said, you know, we condemn him, he is evil, he is a sinner, he must burn, we want to see him destroyed. La, 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 la. Guess what? Our planet would be destroyed. Our planet would burn. You're not allowed to do that. You're allowed to do it, but you're not allowed to get away with it. You get karma. And so you really want to be aware of this because karma is the most important law in the universe. The first distortion of the law of one is what they call it. So that means that it's exacting, and you're never, ever going to be able to avoid that. If you cause someone else to be sad, if you cause someone else to be depressed, if you cause someone else to be hurt, and you did it knowingly, not in response. I mean, yes, if you have boundaries, people are going to be sad, hurt, and depressed. They don't like being told no. But if you do this knowingly, if you just decide you want to hurt somebody's feelings, you're going to pay for it. It'll probably be almost immediate. Leslie Lamar just donated. Thank you very much, Leslie. We're already half an hour in, up to 3,256 viewers. That's awesome. So again, we're doing great here, and I got a great show for you guys. Oh, we got another one. Village Floral House says, I just reported a bunch of UFOs outside of Vegas yesterday, and then you put Vegas in the title today. Well, that's pretty awesome. I'm glad that you had that synchronicity. Thank you. Thank you for donating. Walker Customs says, karma is definitely real. Rock from Canada says, no fear is the best way to exist. Non-military says, thinking is the best way to travel. That's from the Moody Blues. I love that album. Anyway, that was in Search of the Lost Chord, I believe. Thinking is the best way to travel, all right? So anyway, I'm happy to be here, and I don't want to spend too much time just dilly-dallying. So we got another donation from Gaia Helper. Thank you very much. And we're at 3331 viewers, so it's a synchronicity. Okay, so let's get back to the main point here, which is these principles of balance. Now, negative entities would not just show up and try to invade, but again, if we authorize it, if enough of us had hated Bill Clinton, then we would have had the 1998 pole shift that the Edgar Cayce readings predicted. So Cayce was manipulated by a negative entity called Halalil, and that entity actually was the one that authored those earth changes. California sinks into the ocean in 1998. That all came from Halalil. That was a timeline that existed, but it wasn't likely to be the one we were on. And Edgar Cayce had actually authorized Halalil to give him negative information by what? By being angry at the people who hated him. If you simply get angry at your haters and you're in this kind of spiritual warfare, that can have a massive, massive karmic toll. So again, the real principle is we are all one. We are all supposed to be loving each other here. That's what the planet is for. You don't want to go around being negative towards anyone. And so when we look at what's going on with Trump, we had the same thing. If the temptation had been taken that people wanted to hate Trump, and yes, he has aspects of his personality that I think are the product of the toughness that he's had to have in order to get through this life. I mean, how many people would have done this? How many people would hang in there with a sense of honor and duty and just keep going? And he had that statement about honor and keeping going this past week. We'll have that in the show. How many people would have actually done this? So he has qualities that my therapist would call resiliency. But along with resiliency can come a certain degree of forcefulness in the personality. He is sarcastic. He does sometimes make put-downs. He's a typical New Yorker, so am I. That's why I understand what he's doing. I learned a long time ago as I moved from New York to Virginia, and then I lived in Kentucky. I lived in Virginia for 5 years. I lived in Kentucky for 3 years. And I learned that in other parts of the country, basically everywhere else in the country except for New York State, sarcasm is not seen very well. In New York, if we're sarcastic, if we put you down, if we make an insult, it actually means we like you. And this is something that I used to do, but people had a really, really hard time with it. I've learned as a public figure that with this authority that I have, just by virtue of the fact that there are millions of people paying attention to me, I have to be very, very careful about hurting anybody's feelings or making a sarcastic jab, because in New York, if you make a sarcastic comment to somebody, they make a sarcastic comment to you, and then you both put each other down and you both laugh about it and it's over. Well, most of the rest of the world doesn't really like that. They don't see it that way, and I've had myself a very hard time learning that, sarcasm just doesn't really work. You got to be very, very careful, and people can get really mad and they can take it the wrong way, and then they start plotting against you, and they might not even, you don't even see it right away. It's the old Asian saying, smile to his face, plot behind his back. So I've essentially learned to lay off of that. But again, these qualities of resiliency, of alpha male bravery, and being out there as a very forthright, forceful person, a lot of people don't like that. Also, those who are on the psychopath spectrum, as I was talking about before, the various areas of the brain that are shut down, this can happen from one event. One sexual trauma of sufficient intensity, for example, is enough to shut down somebody's whole brain, turn them into a psychopath. They have a significantly lower IQ now. They will not be able to remember facts and figures, data and information as well as they would have before. They lose a lot of cognitive functionality, and they lose a lot of creativity, inspiration. The frontal lobes are the centers of emotion, the centers of compassion, the centers of love. And so if a psychopath is being loved by you, they will not feel anything. They don't care if you love them. They don't care if they get hugged or if you say, I love you. There's no brain activity that's going to support that being a payoff for them. They're not going to get oxytocin, serotonin. They will enjoy sexuality, but what happens is, as I said in other shows, the striatum, which is in the corpus callosum, fires up when they see people being hurt. And the striatum is associated with pleasure, including sexual pleasure. So believe it or not, if you have enough childhood trauma, your brain shuts down and there's no visible way to tell. But in the Bible, they say the mark of the beast, and it's on the forehead. Well, guess what? The forehead, orbitofrontal cortex, this whole region is shut down. And if you could see auras, there would be a noticeable black mark there. That's one definition that I use in Michael Prophecies for the mark of the beast. And again, you can't really tell who they are. It's very difficult to figure out that somebody is a psychopath at first because they are chameleons. They will immediately try to figure out who you want as your ultimate partner, who you want as your ultimate business contact, your ultimate friend. They will try to give you those things, but it's all a sham. And the striatum is going to light up in their brain when you're being hurt, when you're being tortured. So they will go through a period with you, which is the deify phase, where they look up to you as almost a godlike figure. They worship you. In fact, you've never had anybody appreciate and admire you as much as a psychopath will. Most normal people will not give you that much praise. They just won't. The psychopath is going to deify you. They're going to just talk about you like you're the greatest thing ever. I've had many, many cases of this happen to me in my professional career. In fact, unfortunately, as a public figure, people with psychopathy are probably the only ones who are going to fight hard enough to try to get to me. So like people come up at events, they say all this great stuff. You got to be really careful if somebody's too complimentary. I'm not into that. I don't really want a whole lot of compliments because it kind of freaks me out now. It's like, well, if somebody's trying really, really hard to make me feel great, then there might be something behind it. So my point on this is that they will essentially lure you in. They want to give you everything you've ever dreamed of, and this is what we're seeing. It's so ironic that the LGBT community has been lured in so effectively by this. They've never had anybody stand up for them before. I get that. I know what that feels like. It's the same thing with UFOs. Throughout most of my career, everybody just insults me. They think they can. It's well, I say everybody. I mean, the mainstream perspective up until maybe the last 10 years, and Ancient Aliens, the show that I was in, had a lot to do with changing this. But the mainstream perspective is, oh, you're a kook, you're a tinfoil hat, you're stupid, you're ignorant, you're foolish, ha, ha, ha. You don't believe in the mainstream. You believe something alternative, ha, 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 F you. Well, that's all turning around, but that's same thing that LGBT people have gone through. They felt very disrespected. I get that. You know, they're treated like they're disgusting. I get that. I've had all these things happen to me too. And so when somebody finally comes out there on a global level and now makes you the elite and says, you're the special ones, you're the privileged ones, you're the ones who get to do what you want, you're the ones who we're going to glorify and deify, you are gods. Well, it's like 96% in inoculation uptake that happened in that community. And those are deadly. As we're now finding out, it's even being pulled off the market now. So like, if they really loved you, would they all want to put you down? Would they be luring you into injecting yourself with this stuff? If they really did care, no. They don't really care about you, even if you have this gay perspective. They don't. So please don't fall for this, because these people are psychopathic. They just want depopulation. They don't really care about who it is. If they lure you in and you happen to be LGBT, fine, that's great. We don't care. And it's very, very hard. I mean, you have to go through a crying phase. You have to go through a betrayal. You have to be like, oh my God, wait a minute. I was lied to. I was cheated. I was tricked by the institutions of our society. I mean, the average naive person just grows up thinking you can trust the world, you can trust society. So wow, if the gay banner is being flown and now they're on my side and I'm the elite, well then I'm going to do what they want, I'm going to support them. Well no, if you did what they want, then your lifespan has been greatly reduced. And thankfully, as Michael has said, Archangel Michael, if you watch previous shows, I had telepathic contact that began in 1996, and in 1999 it identified as Archangel Michael. It's another form of identifying. So if you're still alive now, you're probably going to be okay, because by next year, there's going to be some very phenomenal things happening that will allow people to be healed. So you might have a scare in which you have this substance in your body and it's creating these negative effects. But if you can hang on for 1 year, then there's going to be healing available to everyone. If the body is still there, you can restore it to perfect health, because we're going through what Michael calls the first wave of ascension. This is not a random process. This is a process that is almost entirely defined by what we choose as a planet. And when we as a planet choose to have good boundaries and to stand up to the psychopaths, to the people who lie to us, who tell us they have their best interests in mind, oh, well, if they support gayness, then I better just, I'm going to be their champion because nobody's ever stood up for me before and nobody's ever loved me before. Well, I have. I haven't been out there hating on anybody like this, but I also am not asking you to shoot something up. I'm also not asking you to adopt a bunch of crazy policies that hurt people. You got to be able to step back and say, well, yeah, this is what psychopaths do. They give you all this candy, they give you all this bait, they make you think that you're getting what you want, but at the same time, there's all this bad stuff going on, and they keep layering in more and more bad stuff. When I studied this in college, and I'm just going to speak from that perspective about relationships with psychopaths. I have a degree in this, more or less, because I also did an internship on a suicide crisis hotline. Yeah, we're still at 4,000 people. That's awesome. Thank you guys for being here. So I did this internship, and I learned about this. Psychopaths will deify you. Oh my gosh, if you're gay, that's so wonderful. We love you so much. But in the process, what are they doing? They're luring you into more and more selfish, negative behavior. And again, if enough of us do this on a planetary level, the planet could be destroyed. So the non-catastrophic ascension timeline is what we're on. And apparently these inoculations paved the way for that. There are many, many people who have been lost. There probably are going to be more who will be lost. I mean, that's already happening. So, but this has allowed us to have a global awakening. People are realizing that there is an entrenched negativity here. And the stuff I studied about with a relationship with a psychopath in college now applies perfectly to the relationship that we have to the authorities, to the elite, to the people who control what we watch. You know, they're controlling what scripts get approved. Every script is now like, has these pieces of content in it, which again, if you're a gay person, it's like, oh, wow, you know, now it's like, it's so great. I mean, everything I watch, it supports me. It's on television. It's in movies. They're trying to pass laws. They're trying to do things that I want. Well, that's the trick. And the question is, how far are you willing to let this go? How far are you willing to see society crumble just because the person crumbling it is giving you a couple candies that you think are really sweet and taste good? But then it's like, that's what everybody has to go through. If you get involved in this kind of a relationship, and now all of us are, with a psychopath, they're going to give you some of what you want. They're going to make you feel good. They're going to pump up your ego. They're going to tell you you're fantastic. They're going to tell you you're amazing. They're going to tell you you're fabulous. But they're also luring you into becoming more and more negative, and that is their agenda. They want everybody on their side. They want you creating more negativity, and in the Law of One, it is precisely explained that we are in a spiritual hologram. And again, the main thing we want to do is honor and respect and love one another. We want to have forgiveness. We want to have compassion. If you are a gay person, that's great, but it does not give you an excuse to hate on people who are not. You have to have an open heart. You have to have a loving perspective, or you are subject to karma. And to create an elite, to create an us versus them, that we're the inside group and everybody else out besides our group, well, we hate them. We don't like, oh my God, you're straight. Oh my God, heteronormative. Ugh. Okay, well, again, I totally support you if you're gay, no problem. You know, I have gay characters in the show, and I love you just as much as anybody else. It's not a problem for me. All I'm concerned about is your ethical conduct. What are you behaving like in your daily life? Because if you take the bait, and if you start going down that road, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get karma. And we all have to step back and say, wait a minute, even though I've won a whole bunch of things on my list that I really, really wanted to see, this is not okay. I don't support what they're trying to do to children. I don't support what they're trying to do to women. Women should have the right to be able to compete without being hurt. And you can easily get hurt by somebody. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to go into too much detail. So, again, getting back to the Law of One, the negative is responsible for this. We ultimately find out that the negative on Earth is coordinated. And it's a coordinated negativity that's happening from higher level forces that in some cases are negative. So you have fourth density negative, fifth density negative, and then as you're about to see in these quotes by sixth density, it all goes positive. So the negative entities, first of all, you have what we would normally think of as the devil or Satan, and that actually turns out to be real. So there is such a thing as Satan, there is such a thing as the devil, and in fact, it says in the Law of One that many fourth density negative entities actually will graduate to fifth density negative, in which case you have the potential to become an entity like this for a given planet. You will be the equivalent of the devil. And what does that actually mean? Well, it means that you stay very hidden. You can project into a human-looking body if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. Most of them never do. Apparently, we have Lucifer's palace in Antarctica, and it sounds crazy, but this is high-level intel corroborated by at least 2 sources I've heard from. There actually is a place where this fifth density negative entity that we could think of as Lucifer manifests as a human being. And again, Hollywood has given us so many movies on UFOs and monsters that if somebody says, I don't want you to believe in that, that stuff is bunk, it's like, well, wait a minute. You've taught us to love this content. You've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars on monster and UFO movies. But wait a minute. You tell us in the movie that this is this fun thing. It's amazing. We want to learn about this. But then, oh, no, it's not real. And if you believe in this, you're an outcast. You're a tinfoil hat nutter. I've been going through this my whole life, so I have great sympathy for the gay community. If I was gay and all I had to do is come out of the closet, that would be much easier. And I'd have way more social acceptance, especially now, than I would as a ufologist, believe it or not. I mean, now it might not be that way, but for many, many years, UFOs, you know. But then again, if I start talking to people and I just give them a little bit at a time, one fact after another, you find out they're really into it. The only people who really are still potentially against the UFO scholarship would be baby boomer generation. I have had people in the baby boomer generation where I start talking about this and they get all scared and they just kind of freeze up and look at the wall and say, I don't want to talk about that. I don't believe in anything like that. Well, that's because they're afraid of the ostracism. The powers that were have tried to make you hate yourself if this is the way you believe. They want other people to hate you. They want you to be considered discredited. But again, the powers that were, the so-called elite, are actually in contact at the highest levels with negative extraterrestrials. But that is a need-to-know level that even goes above the President of the United States. Cosmic top secret clearance is 35 levels above the President. So don't expect Bill Clinton to know about it. Don't expect Obama to know about it. Trump might not know very much about it either. He might not have had a need to know. So don't assume that they know what's going on. But when I talked to Uncle Jack, he told me that there was a bifurcation between the secret space program side and the terrestrial so-called elite, where if they're practicing all this dark stuff, they might have certain things happen here on Earth, but they're not aware that there are extraterrestrials involved in this, that the extraterrestrials are headquartered in the constellation Orion, specifically around the star Rigel, which is sort of like the bottom left foot on the right side. So there actually are these reptilians out there. There are extraterrestrials. We now have congressional hearings about this. It's been formally disclosed. There have been UFO crashes. They have recovered the debris. Roswell was real. And Uncle Jack was one of the ones who told me that some of the crashes they found had reptilians in them and that the inside of the ship was just littered with dead human bodies. So they apparently keep people in stasis. They free you. You run out. You see all this horror around you. You're screaming, and then they kill you. And you saw that I had poems that I wrote in high school and junior high even that are very disturbing. There's a whole huge amount of evidence to suggest that I had something like this happen to me. Thank God it never carried over into my waking life. But if you get abducted by a UFO, you can have a parallel lifetime where they could take you out for potentially years and bring you back to the moment you left and you don't remember anything. So I don't want to go through all that content again. It is disturbing, and just you thinking about it might make you disturbed. But I want to focus today on why we haven't had an alien invasion. Why haven't they just shown up in the sky and started blowing us away? And if you think that it just hasn't happened yet, I'm sorry, that's just foolish. Let me get my Trump slippers on. I need the Trump slippers for this. My feet are starting to get a little bit cold. So anyway, why hasn't it happened? Well, they can't. They can't actually invade us unless enough people like Sodom and Gomorrah were quote-unquote wicked or had this negative perspective and they didn't actually authorize their own life to continue. If you go far enough down the negative road, the karma will lead to your physical death. So what the negative actually has to try to do is to try to lure you in to do it to yourself. You have to go negative. You have to take the turn to be dark. You have to take the turn to say things like what the Pope said this past week, a very disgusting slur. And no, everybody's okay with that, but 34 counts. Okay, yeah, right. This is so silly. It's so silly. So anyway, why can't the negative just invade? Again, it's because we have not given them permission. You can't do anything that somebody hasn't authorized you to do. So what they instead do, and the Law of One goes into great detail on this, and again, there's all kinds of prophetic statements in it that have proven to be true. They did talk about the rise of a global fascism and interesting things. There's all this scientific stuff the Law of One talked about that I was able to validate on my own with empirical research on hundreds and hundreds of levels. My whole first book, Source Field Investigations, is essentially just taking the things the Law of One said and adding science to it, and I didn't even need to refer to the Law of One. The science stands up on its own. The Law of One was done in 1983, and almost all of the science I used in Source Field, with maybe only a handful of exceptions, was discovered after the Law of One ended. We find out the universe is alive. We find out that DNA is a quantum blueprint. It's written into quantum mechanics. We find out that DNA manifests in plain water just through having the proximity of other DNA nearby. We find out that the photon actually digitally stores information, including genetic information, And you can take photons with a certain type of genetic information and then zoom them into other things that are alive and transform that life form. So this is the infamous Garyaev frog salamander experiment. Dr. Peter Garyaev shot laser light through salamander eggs and then zapped frog eggs. And the frog eggs, hermetically sealed, nothing else but these salamander photons going in there, they mutated into salamanders. They grew into adult salamanders. They could breed with other salamanders, and everything was fine. So this is real stuff. And we live in a biological universe. The universe itself is built to make life. We now find out there's at least 40 billion with a B, Earth-like planets with water and continents and land just in our galaxy alone. And now it appears that wherever liquid water exists, again, there's a Goldilocks principle in the universe. It's going to make biological life. It's going to make DNA, so you're going to have plants, animals, birds, fish, a basic flora and fauna on every planet, pretty much the same. I mean, there might be some that vary. And again, some planets create humans out of reptilians, some create them out of insects, some create them out of aquatic life. But we all ultimately share the same spiritual principles that are embodied in the hero's journey. That's a galactic blueprint of 22 archetypes according to Law of One. Everybody has to master these lessons in order to be a spiritual person to live on Earth. So, the negative does not invade. That's not going to work for them. They can't do that unless the planet's already negative enough. Instead, what they do is they reach out to the people who are reaching to them. And these are people engaging in ritual magic, black magic, where you don't have to do this that way, but apparently it's a very exacting thing. One of the things we find out from the insider Area 51 crew is that Satanism is something that these negative ETs will create on every planet they go to. It's pretty much the same. You have the circle, you have the robes, you have the candles, you have the chanting, and you have the disturbing practices that then result, which lead to the manifestation visibly for the people in the room of some type of creature, some type of monster. So yes, monsters are real. And if you play around with this stuff, the whole point of doing black magic is that you're going to see something that will scare the crap out of you and will create atrocities. And this apparently is a byproduct of the fact that the Earth has these spiritual planes, some of which are negative. There's 7 levels of negativity, just like the 7 hells in Dante's Inferno. And so if we, as creator beings, that's what the Law of One says we are, if we create an opportunity, a window for one of these entities to actually materialize into 3-dimensional space, then lo and behold, the principle of balance is satisfied. And now that entity is able to actually apport into the room. It may not be as tangible or physical as everybody thinks. I mean, if, for example, if anybody in the circle cries or screams or has any type of negative reaction to what they're seeing, it can actually damage or kill the demon that appears. So one of the most important, probably the most important principle, is that everybody has to remain completely silent. You can't scream, you can't cry. No matter what you see, you have to shut the F up, because you could actually hurt that being. And so this is something that really suggests that, if even one person isn't concentrating properly and doing it properly, the being can't even continue to exist. So it says it's like a weird magic trick built into the galaxy where our creative powers, if we work as a group, can allow this temporary visual manifestation. Besides, it's not only just that something might appear in the room, people appear to shapeshift. You will appear to see somebody turn into a werewolf. Somebody might have a hideous, disgusting, demonic face that shows up on their face. These are all things that are widely reported from a wide number of different people who have reported on this, and it always contains the same sort of story elements. And nobody would ever want to, I didn't even want to believe this. I had information like this available to me. I didn't write about it. Demons, oh, come on. I don't really believe all that. But then when the Michael prophecies came up, beginning in 2022 is when I really got into it, late 2021, I'm like, whoa, maybe there is something to all this. And then as I did more research, I found a very contiguous line of reasoning. So the people who are involved in this, secrecy is their number one objective. They do not want you to know what they're doing. They do not want to be exposed. And yet, paradoxically, they are obligated to those who they serve, the beings that have enslaved them, these demonic entities. They have to promote, they have to advertise, they have to go out there and create content that has demonic elements in it over and over again. This is part of the pact that you enter into. Now, are these demons going to hold your soul eternally? No. That's one of the lies that they tell you. That's one of the things they want you to believe. But again, all souls experience redemption. All souls are ultimately going to go positive. Hell is not eternal. But believe me, you do not want to go there. Apparently, because of huge indiscretions and murders that I committed in various past lives, apparently including the Hebrew King David, you know, I have a perfect facial similarity to Edgar Cayce, perfect astrological similarity, the best in 157 years. It looks as if that's what all reincarnation is, according to Dr. Ian Stevenson, the classic reincarnation researcher. He found kids in the Middle East who could remember their past lives, sometimes remembering all these different things that are very specific that he could then go and follow up on. And in every case where they had specific memories, they had a shocking facial resemblance to the person they claimed to remember being. So in the law of one perspective, you do not exist in linear time. That is an illusion. All points on the timeline exist simultaneously. All of your lifetimes exist simultaneously. But the contiguous thread is that you're going to look the same from lifetime to lifetime, because that's the blueprint of your soul. So something about heredity, something about how you grow up into an adult is molded not just by your parents' genetics, but by the true face of your soul, which will then express into the way that your body looks. And it's interesting that as Cayce was younger, he didn't look as much like me. It's as he grew into adulthood and sexual maturity, which again includes the fact that bones in your face grow through puberty. That's where you really are going to acquire the greatest facial similarity to whoever you had been before. So Edgar Cayce did over 14,000 documented psychic readings where he was in deep trance, and he could diagnose people's medical conditions and give them treatments that were effective when they were otherwise written off for dead. The Cayce readings are unparalleled in any other literature on Earth, and it's been proven that this was true. However, there's never really been any type of television show or movie about Cayce that was ever made, so if you haven't gone and read the Cayce books or heard what I talked about or read about it online, you probably haven't heard about this. And that's by design. They don't want you to know that there was this guy who was in touch with higher intelligence, and it was all about Jesus. I mean, Cayce readings are very, very Christian, way more than the Michael prophecies, way more than I'm ever willing to go. All Cayce ever did is read the Bible. Every year he read it cover to cover, starting in 8th grade, throughout the rest of his life. That is true. So when I started to have my telepathic contacts beginning in 1996, it began with this shocking Bible quote that, I guess that happened in 95, where I got this quote from Ecclesiastes, as we said in a previous video. I've said it in previous books too. So again, the Cayce readings were unparalleled, and they also gave people past life readings, and many of his closest associates apparently had lived with him before. This is a common point. The people who you're living with in your life today, this is not the first time you've been around them. You have a soul family. Most people apparently have about 20 to 25 individuals who they keep reincarnating with in lifetime after lifetime. So whoever you know, whoever you're around, whoever is closest to you, if you have a romantic partner, if you have people that are in your family, if you have people who you've lived with for a long time, you've probably had multiple lifetimes with them before. And we come back to work out karma. So if you hurt these people in their lifetime, maybe they have to come back and hurt you. And it might seem really unfair. You might be very upset by the things that they did, the things that they said. Nothing bad really happens to you in the law of one. It's not bad. It's just karma. It's balance. So there's a very famous quote from the Buddha where one of his students slapped him across the face in anger. And Buddha was in such a great state of meditation and peace that he just smiled. Oh, thank you for balancing the karma between us. That's what he said. So Buddha really got it, like, okay, there must have been a reason for why you just slapped me across the face. In some other lifetime, I might have hurt you. So thank you for balancing the karma between us. That level of detachment is ultimately what we want to have. Now, the law of one, however, does not speak very highly of self-martyrdom. The idea of turn the other cheek That only works through fourth density. Boundaries is what comes in fifth density. That's where you learn that you have to protect yourself. You can't just let somebody kill you because they want to. You can't let somebody rape your family because they want to. And you will see that being as existing in folly, which means that they're ignorant, and then you decide to do something about it. So that's actually, you're obligated. You have an honor and a duty to protect yourself and to protect your family. It's basic fifth density. And a lot of times it happens through honest communication. Most boundaries are defended verbally by just being honest about, hey, you know, that really hurt my feelings. I don't feel safe anymore. I don't feel like I can trust you anymore. Can we please talk about this? That's usually how you want to start before you just have any type of angry, aggressive reaction. So we find out that there's a 5D Lucifer who then enlists these 4D negative aliens like reptilians, insectoids, and greys. And at that level of fourth and fifth density, they're very aware of the astral planes around the earth. They're very aware that there's these legions of demons that would love to get into the earth and have fun, which for them would be killing people, molesting people, hurting people, all this kind of stuff they want to do. So those negative entities, as it says in the Law of One, will then contact the elite, the people on earth who are wealthy, powerful, famous, etc. If they are susceptible to this, if they have turned negative, then these aliens will show up and they will teach you how to summon demons. That's a very basic aspect of what this world is about. That's a very basic aspect of what they want you to do. And so Aleister Crowley, as I said before, got in contact with this entity known as Aiwass in 1904, and then the solar eclipse was the 120-year anniversary of when Crowley connected with Aiwass. And so we had the DS actually do ceremonies, including firing up CERN, the particle accelerator, the biggest atom smasher on Earth, to try to create a demonic portal. And then very, very soon after they did that is when Iran attacked Israel, and it was so scary we thought World War III was about to begin. That's what they wanted. That's what that ceremony was for. And they specifically did it on the 120-year anniversary of Crowley's first contact with these Greys in 1904 with Aiwass. So this stuff is real. The Greys we now know of, but Crowley was drawing pictures of them back in, 1917 is when he got in contact with this being called Lam that actually posed for a painting and had Crowley draw this painting of him. So I know this is out of the box, it's unusual, but I do believe that the U.S. military wants you to learn about this. They have a vested interest in actually teaching you about these negative beings, getting you to understand that this is true, getting you to understand that this is what's actually going on. And so I feel like I'm voluntarily enlisting in a new form of military service that isn't even really publicly spoken about. You can't go to a recruitment office. You can't get drafted for this. But on your own free will, if you decide to be brave enough to step forward and to talk about this with no fear and to go out there and to spread the truth, then you are doing what the U.S. military and other groups around the world really want. So again, the negative can't openly invade. They have to lure in the elite, and then they use the elite by proxy because it's all about free will. We have to do this to ourselves. They have to get human beings to do this to other human beings. Then if those human beings can create enough negativity, they can invade, but only upon that principle. So this is why, again, the 34 counts that we just saw that happened against Trump, that is a very crazy mistake that they made. If you understood the Law of One, you never would have done that. You never would have allowed this to happen because it's a principle of balance, as I was just saying. You are creating a balance that then can be met by the other side. So, for example, the negative is never going to try to invade because they'd be immediately defeated. If they tried to show up in the sky, their ships would be shot down before they even got done. You'd never even know that it happened, and they'd already be destroyed. So they have to be very, very careful that they don't go too far over the line, they don't act too aggressively, they don't do too much that's crazy, they don't go too evil, they don't go too far over the line. If they do, then they're subject to a balancing effect. So what the positive does is it waits for the negative to screw up, it waits for the negative to make these huge mistakes, and then it can create karma for the negative. So if the negative actually ever does more than what you authorized, If the negative actually steps over the line, you now can defend yourself legally in terms of universal law. It's legal to defend yourself. And again, you want to focus on compassion, focus on forgiveness, understand that there's only one of us here, that this person is not really bad. There is no bad person. There's just negative emotions that cloud their judgment. We got a donation from Ross Feinstein. Have you watched Resident Alien yet? I'm curious what you think. Yeah, I mean, there's Resident Evil is a movie that has multiple films that have a lot of interesting things going on in there. So yes, there's all kinds of movies that teach us about what's really going on. It has underground bases, it has demons, it has all kinds of interesting stuff in it. So I want to now read you some of these quotes from the Law of One on balance, because I think it's really going to help to explain this. So the Orion group, again, I just said, they're in the constellation Orion, around the star Rigel. The free will of the instrument, because this was a question specifically designed for Carla, who they call the instrument. She's the one that was channeling the Law of One. They had the Bible open. It was very Christian. They had a prayer that they do. They had this incense. And she herself went to church just like Edgar Cayce did. She was very Christian, just like Edgar Cayce was. And now we find out that the source probably would have identified itself as Archangel Michael, except that it needed to slide under the radar. So it used an old name, which was, in Egypt, it was called Ra. But that's not evil. This was actually a positive group whose teachings were then misunderstood and co-opted by the negative. And that's all explained in great detail in the Law of One, which I've now done a very thorough analysis of this in Michael Prophecies. So, the free will, we got some more donations. Good Girl, $50. Frank Edwards Jr., $20. Thank you both very much. Goddess Guru Melina says, love is the absence of separation. Unite the Holy Christ and Antichrist for salvation. Well, yeah, each one of us has Antichrist type of characteristics in ourselves, and the question is, are you going to let that predominate or not? But I want to get into my slides here. So, the free will of any particular person is indeed a necessary part of the opportunity afforded by the Orion group. However, this free will and the first distortion applies only to the instrument. Now, this is the main line right here. The entire hope of the Orion group is to infringe upon free will without losing polarity. Thus, this group, if represented by a wise entity, attempts to be clever. So again, cleverness is very important. They lied to you. They're not going to tell you, oh, by the way, we want everybody to take a suicide shot. They're not going to do that. They have to trick you. They have to be clever. And they have to infringe upon your free will without losing polarity. That's the key line we just saw. What does that actually mean? Again, if they go too far, if they go beyond the level of your free will, what you invited, then they lose their polarity. They're not as negative, and that opens them up to severe balancing karma. They can be destroyed. And this is what they've just done here on Earth. It's very metaphysically unsavvy to have thrown this at Trump. I mean, look at what happened. He raised, what was it, $53 million in 24 hours? All you're doing is making it worse for yourselves. You know, this is very silly. It's easily going to be overturned on appeal. But now you've really created a dividing line where everybody has to say, like, what do I believe? What do I really see? Am I going to be okay with this or not? Am I going to think this is okay? So they have to infringe by being very clever. So these are some quotes that establish what I was talking about last week. The positive-negative polarity is a thing which will, at the sixth level, simply become history. You have to go positive. You can't stay negative or your soul literally dissolves. And I don't think that really happens. I think everybody pretty much figures it out that they have to become nice. Now here's another one, session 55.3. The negative polarization is greatly aided by the subjugation or enslavement of other selves. That is the most important thing. They have to subjugate you. They have to enslave you by your own free will. That is how they succeed. So they have to lure you in to say, yeah, you know what? F that guy. I hate him, 45. I hate Trump. F him, you know, ha, ha, ha. Let's watch him be destroyed. I like this. I like what's happening. I feel good about it. They're being clever. You don't want to think that way about anybody. So even if his New York sarcasm annoys you greatly, you still got to make sure that you're treating everybody as one. You still got to make sure you follow the principles of forgiveness and compassion, because if you don't, you're being manicured, you're being groomed by some negative force that's trying to lure you in to service to self, the negative path. They're greatly aided by the subjugation and enslavement of others. The potential between two negatively polarized entities is such that the entity who can enslave the other or bid the other will gain in its negative polarity. So it's all about keeping people enslaved. The entity so bidden or enslaved in serving an other self will necessarily lose negative polarity, although it will gain in desire for further negative polarization. So you're not going to win in the negative realms by being enslaved. If you're working for somebody else and you're doing what they want and they dominate you, they're gaining power, but you're losing power. They're sucking your energy. And one of my favorite scientific studies is from Wilcock, the Wilcock fish egg study, where he found out that if you take eggs that were laid by fish that are younger eggs, and then you have other eggs laid by a different fish that are older and closer to becoming adults, the older eggs will actually suck the health out of the younger eggs and they will wither and die. And what's so weird about this was that if you have a quartz lens between the two containers of fish eggs, this effect works and the weaker eggs will wither and die. But if you have glass and everything else is sealed, it doesn't work. Why in the world would it be the difference between quartz and glass? What the hell difference would that make? Glass shields ultraviolet light and quartz does not. So it's ultraviolet photons. It's a photonic effect. When you see people being abused and hurt, they're typically like leaning forward. So all this stuff about subjugation, as you're seeing right here in enslavement, the person who's being subjugated and enslaved is leaning forward a lot of times. It's humble. Eventually they get this kind of dowager's hump from it. Well, guess what? That is actually something that your body is instinctively feeling the loss of energy. They are energy vampires. They are sucking your energy. The Wilcock fish egg study proves that this is true. Older fish eggs, stronger fish eggs will actually suck the health out of the weaker ones and kill them. And they absorb that energy and they absorb that vitality. So this is the whole basis of the negative path. If your dog goes and takes a dump on the side of the road and you see those turds there, well, they might not be there in a couple days. Why is that? Because there's stuff that lives in the ground that looks gross and it's going to want to come up and eat that stuff. There are things in nature that feed on the stuff that we don't want. So these negative entities, they actually feed on fear. It's very important to understand a movie like Monsters Incorporated is actually telling us exactly what's going on. These entities must have loosh, as it's called. They must have you sad and depressed. They must have you enslaved. The more of your energy they can suck, the more energy they can suck away from living things, the higher they gain in negative polarity. And this is the bid for enslavement that we were talking about. So they actually feed on the emotions that we have that are negative. They feed on sadness. They feed on anger. They feed on fear. They feed on us being judgmental. They feed on jealousy. They love it if you're jealous. They love it if you get pissed off at people. They love it if you're in a state of distress, if you're crying, if you're depressed, if you're angry, and especially if you're afraid. There's nothing they love more than you being afraid. So it's a very important and often misunderstood spiritual teaching to be fearless. And it's so easy for people to fall into fear. It's so easy for people to lose track of what really counts and that we're all protected. That you're not ever going to experience more than what you're creating. The universe has perfect balance. You will not be hurt more than the hurt that you have created for others. If you create hurt for others, then the hurt will come back to you, and negative entities are allowed to do that. So if you invite a certain amount of negative karma, negative entities get to carry that out, but they are being carefully watched and supervised by the positive. So again, if you are enslaved, you will lose negative polarity, but you will decide that you're hurt and you want more negative polarization. This desire to become more negative will then tend to create opportunities to regain negative polarity. Jealousy, in turn, leads to plotting. Plotting leads to betrayal. Betrayal leads to you stealing someone's romantic love. You don't really intend to stay with them, stealing their money, stealing their pride, stealing their glory from others, defaming them in the public. This is all stuff that the negative wants to do. They want to create humiliation. They want to create anger. They want to create sadness. And they want to destroy you. And they ultimately want you dead. The farther somebody is on the psychopath spectrum, the more of a psychopathic killer the more like a Hannibal Lecter they actually are. Now, most psychopaths don't go for actually hurting people with violence. We used to think psychopathy was mostly about physical violence, but no, the majority of psychopaths are nonviolent. They're actually nonviolent. They don't actually do physical violence. They want you to do it to yourself. What the negative entity would love the most is to drive you to a point where you hurt yourself or even kill yourself. That's what they really love the most. They want you to do your own self in. They're going to lie to you over and over again. They're going to tell you, I love you. This is what I learned in college. I love you. I support you. I've got your back, da, 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 da. But then the reality is, no, they're constantly doing bad things. They're constantly hurting you. They're constantly getting angry at you. You're constantly in trouble. You're constantly apologizing. You're constantly on the defense. There's no happiness. There's no love, really. I mean, you might get bursts of it here and there, but it's just to keep you manipulated, and it always degrades. It gets worse and worse. There's 3 phases: deify, denigrate, and destroy. First, they deify you. That lures you in. Then they denigrate you, and then they destroy you. And they really do want to see you die. This is a very important point. They get off on that. If you actually were to kill yourself, they're going to be happy. I hate to bring this up, but I felt like I'm going to have to today. She is still alive, but I mean, it's a very widely known story. Yoko Ono and the Beatles, right? The first time that John Lennon really had a date with Yoko Ono, she created a art exhibit that had just one apple, and that was it. And obviously, it's on the nose. It's like, okay, Adam and Eve and the temptation. I was talking about the White Album last time and how bad this was. Well, how bad it was for them at that time in their life. So John Lennon actually bit the apple on Yoko Ono's art exhibit. This is in many years from now, which is Paul McCartney's biography. And that was a symbolic gesture. She apparently hated the Beatles, and you can see lots of evidence of this because Paul McCartney reports in his biography that she was lying there in a bed in the room while they were in the studio, and she demanded that she have a live microphone that she could interrupt any take that the Beatles were doing at any time while they're playing their instruments. She's just going to say, I don't like it. Like, she's more important than everybody else. Of course this is going to make people mad, and of course it's going to turn John against everybody else, and John and Paul, she's going to destroy that relationship. She wants to be the one in control. She wants to be the ultimate dominator. And again, John Lennon got very, very dark, and he ultimately authorized his own death. How did he do that? Because if you read Paul McCartney's book again, John Lennon was going around New York City. People would say, oh my God, John Lennon, I love you. You're so amazing. And he would just, F you, mate. He was like really, really mean to people, very caustic. And yeah, that went on for years. So yes, he did have a comeback eventually around 1980. I'm just sitting here watching the wheels go round and round. That was him saying, I don't want to watch the wheels go round and round. I want to get back into the game. But he had spent years building up all this bad karma by hating on people. And that was not Yoko's fault. That's ultimately his fault. She was just a catalyst. But these actions led to him knowingly agreeing with her and allowing the Beatles to be destroyed, taking her side, not standing up for his friends, not having honor. And look at what happened. Again, I hate to say it, but you look at both Martin Luther King and the Kennedys, they were all womanizers, and that's again a really fast track to authorize your own death. So it's really sad that these things happen, but there's reasons why in universal law these things occurred. Even the book that was, even the movie about Martin Luther King, the one that came out a few years ago, they touched on the fact that he was having all these affairs. So again, I love Martin Luther King, no judgment at all. I think he's amazing. But as he was also doing that great work, he was influenced and tempted by the negative enough so that this was able to happen to him. It's very, very sad. So there will be more opportunities to regain negative polarity. You become jealous and you want to hurt other people. And this is exactly what happened to John Lennon and why the White Album was so messed up and why they ended up collapsing. Now here's another thing. What are the conditions of the physical problem's disease at the late third density negative? In other words, if a planet of third density like ours is going negative, which ours really isn't, but if there was a planet that was going to fourth density negative, what would happen? There is a disease that is created by negative entities. Sorry. There's a disease, a global disease. They talk about this. So look at this. This is very interesting. At late third density negative, what are the conditions of physical problems like disease? So then he says, again, it's Archangel Michael speaking in his past tense as Ra, past from our perspective. Each planetary experience is unique. The problems, shall we say, of bellicose, which means negative, evil, and violent, the problems, shall we say, of bellicose actions are more likely to be of pressing concern to late third density negative entities than the Earth's reactions to negativity of the planetary mind. For it is often by such warlike attitudes on a global scale, and notice I highlighted the word disease above, that the necessary negative polarization is achieved. So, the COVID scenario that we just went through is the classic thing that these reptilians are going to do every time they go to a planet. They're going to create a big disease, and what happens is, look at what was going on with, you have to wear your mask, you have to take a shot, oh my God, you're unvaccinated, oh my God, you know? This is exactly what they want. It's all part of the package of how they try to achieve a planetary conquering. They got to get us to turn against each other. If you're so afraid that you're going to get sick, that you can't handle anybody who wants their freedom, you say, well, we got to throw them in concentration camps, we got to get rid of them. Guess what? You're authorizing your planet to be enslaved by these aliens, and you better believe that if they reach that point and then they have the permission, they will appear in front of you. And that's where things get much, much, much worse, because you are now directly dominated by them. They can torture you. They can murder you, bring you back to life. They have that technology. There's all kinds of crazy stuff they can do. It's very, very disturbing. So again, that's another prophecy of COVID right in the law of one. It's by these warlike actions of disease on a global scale that they try to achieve necessary polarization. In our case, that didn't work, thank God. As fourth density occurs, there is a new planet and a new physical vehicle system that gradually expresses itself. This first wave of the ascension is going to bring us there. And the parameters of warlike, evil, bellicose actions become those of thought rather than manifested weapons. That's what I was describing in my story that you read, Colin Creates Himself, when you read it with me in, I guess it was a couple weeks ago now. So the parameters of war become thought-based weapons. This is like shooting lightning, shooting balls of light, and using that as a tool. Believe it or not, that's what happens as you go into the next level. So now getting into this principle of balance, balancing allows an equal amount of positive and negative influence, which is balanced by the mind-body-spirit distortions of the social complex, which means society as a whole, of human beings. So, in your planetary sphere, less negative information or stimulus is necessary than positive due to the somewhat negative orientation of your social complex. Now, what do they mean by this? The balancing allows an equal amount of positive and negative. Well, that's why I highlighted it. That's the key. This is another very, very important point. There are these higher beings called guardians. We talked about them last week. And they make absolutely sure that the negative is never more powerful than the positive. So that's why it's so important for somebody like me to keep doing these videos. I have to show you the positive perspective so you don't get lured into, oh my God, 34 indictments, what are we going to do? They're going to put him in prison for the rest of his life. Oh my God, it's all over. Now I'm mad. I got to go fight. No, you don't. Let the authorities take care of it. This is all part of a plan. And they have promised us, they want us to give messages of reassurance because this is all just necessary stuff to wake people up. It's a planetary awakening. It is the Great Awakening. That's what we're going through. And we are learning through being enslaved temporarily, but it's not going to last. It's only an illusion. The Patriots are in control. So again here, balancing allows an equal amount of positive and negative. Even if you think that the world is more negative than positive, that is not really true. They want it to be like the two guys on your shoulder, and they both have an equal voice. So this is a very, very important point because if the negative goes up, if there is an increase in negative influx, like, for example, if the President of the United States is indicted on 34 counts, or the former President of the United States, soon to be future President, I believe, if that's what's really going on, then there's an equal amount of positive influx allowed. This means counterattack from angelic sources. Angelic intervention, not even against, forget about the court, forget about the judge, even forget about the administration that currently appears to be in power, forget about anybody on earth. We're talking about negative entities. These are their proxies doing their biddings. This is ultimately a Luciferian thing. There is a higher entity, higher 5D negative entity that is running the show, and that entity, by having its proxies do this, it's going to suffer profoundly. I had a huge, huge dream. I've been sober, actually. I used after the last show last Sunday. I probably won't do that again this time. And I've then been sober all week. I don't know if I did anything on mine. I don't think I did. But basically, I've been sober all week. This is the longest I've been sober since I had my veneers done. As you may remember, I was delivered by forceps at birth, and my jaw got messed up from it, so my teeth didn't align over here. And I had a problem with grinding my teeth, and I ground all the enamel off my teeth. And I go to the dentist, and it's like, well, yeah, you see that yellow part? That's called dentin. You don't even have enamel on your teeth anymore. The only way I could say, so that's why, like, if I even tried to chew almonds, it like hurt really bad because I had no enamel. So unfortunately, I had to have a full mouth restoration, and my doctor, Dr. Kathy, did not prescribe any pain medication. And I was driving home after I'd had all the enamel removed off of my teeth. Basically, every single tooth was ground to a stump. It was horrific. And then she put these plates on there. So it looks okay, but man, does it freaking hurt. And I was on the way home from that treatment, and every 3 seconds I'm going, oh my, I'm screaming. Every 3 seconds in the car, oh my God. And that was the only way I could handle the pain. On the way home, I went to a dispensary and I got a tincture of cannabis, and it helped me. So now I feel like it's done its job for me. I'm ready to be beyond it. And my God, now that I've been clean for a week, this is the longest it's been since, I guess, 2018 is when I started to use tincture. And 2019 is when I started to use flower. So now this is the longest I've been clean. And actually, you probably are wishing me thank you for that. So, oh, wow, David, no wonder your teeth are so perfect, says Ginny Blankenfeld. Didn't realize David had a drinking problem. No, it wasn't drinking. It was only cannabis. And now I'm off of it. Actually, alcohol is very, very contraindicated. I would never want to do that. Ryan Perella says, it sure would be nice if we could grow more than just a second set of teeth. Wow, that sounds terrible. Yeah, it was very, very bad. Mike P., Scientific Mystic, says, teeth pain is the worst pain imaginable you couldn't imagine. Caroline Madra says, I'm jealous. I wish I could use some cannabis. I had similar experience with my teeth. Melody Hart says, you are watching the movie of all movies. This whole thing was planned out about 8 years ago. David, I did the same thing. I ground my teeth down over my lifetime. As a formal oral surgery nurse, says Count Coup and Blessings, no pain meds was more than unkind to the doctors. Great job on your smile. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look perfect. And so some people have, made fun of me over that. You really don't want to make fun of anybody. But again, nobody follows the rules. They like to do what they want. If you haven't really gotten into spiritual enlightenment, figure out what's really going on here, you could fall into this type of ridiculing of other people. But I would not recommend doing that. So yes, the teeth look good. I feel great about it. I got lumineers, which really have like multiple layers, so they look very real. And it's the best I could do. I couldn't go the way I was anymore. I had to do something different, so this is what I did. Addiction turns you into a non-playing character, Reese Peacock says. Drugs, booze, sex, all of it. Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, it did help me. I think that it does work well for PTSD. Mayan Mountain Incorporated donated $22. Randomly met David in the town where he lives. He gave me the biggest and longest hug. That meant so much to me. Thank you. Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that is what I do. I mean, I have an open heart. The hatred is just not in my vocabulary. I mean, I do get mad sometimes, but I think somebody just said, congratulations on your 1 week. I mean, yeah. Inner Liberation Healing says, you are a wonderful being, David. You are truly amazing. Thank you for sharing your life with us. Love, Debbie. Man, it would be awesome to get high with David, he says Emha. Well, that probably won't be happening anymore. I mean, I could use today, but you know what? I'm getting these amazing dreams now. I'm able to fall asleep right away and not have a problem with staying in bed, staying asleep. I love that. So I just want to stay on this positive healing track. I don't want to screw it up. And I had this dream where I had my job as some type of, I guess, military job, was that I was in this house where demons were appearing, and I had to live in the house and let them appear and let them attack me, because in the process of them appearing, they were exposed, and we were going to capture all the documentation. And then once people knew that they really did exist and that this isn't fake, that's what would defeat them. It was an incredible, incredible dream. So this actually influenced what I ended up talking about this week. But I want to get back to our slides. Thank you guys for all the love. I really appreciate it. So again, getting back to what we said here, the balancing allows an equal amount of positive and negative influx. So this actually is the main point here, that once we have that balance of negative and positive, if the negative crosses a line, if it's like, you know, he's indicted 3 times of more felonies than Al Capone, right? The legendary gangster. This is not real. This doesn't even make sense. And it authorizes the positive to come back with much more elaborate countermeasures. So, and this isn't just on a metaphysical level, this is also on a physical level. I mean, now they finally have screwed up enough that people will welcome an administrative solution to the problem. I don't believe the solution is going to involve violence. But again, the Alliance sent out some great comms. Oh, we got another donation here. Total Todd says, David, thank you. I'm a super fan. You introduced me to the Law of One, changed my life for the better. Thank you, brother. John Chandler says, David, Nino Rodriguez heard you would like to do an interview. He said to reach out to him. He would love to do it. He has a lot of respect for you. Okay, I will. Robert Romero says, I don't dream when I am smoking. I quit 2 months ago and I'm having awesome dreams now. They're different than they used to be. Yes, that is true. Melody Hart, David, Kanobo 2 is a pain reliever. It really works. I've used it for almost a year now. It is not addictive. UFC fighters use it. It has no narcotics and works by teaching your body to handle pain. So I do think it's the best option. It's way better than alcohol, much safer, I would believe. But again, it has a downside. Oh, we got donation, Inner Liberation. Your show and you are a gift to us. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're also now at 4,773 viewers. We're almost at 5,000. That's incredible. We're an hour and a half in. Jason Christie says, I'm just tuning in now. I've sadly been going through it, but I'm seeing the light anyways. Thank you for these weekly sun ray meditations. Alcohol stops you from dreaming. I don't know about cannabis. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, I had a really hard time remembering dreams. So anyway, let's get back to the content because we're at the midpoint now, and I want to dive into the slides. It's an hour and a half in. I typically work 3 hours. I have a lot of slides to get through in the next hour and a half, so I'm sorry I'm going to have to try to focus a little more on slides now, but I love reading your comments. It's so amazing. Thank you guys for being so supportive. It really does warm my heart. So now we're going to see an equal amount of positive influx. When they cross the line, it authorizes the positive to do more. This is really 16.6 here. This is the whole key of my whole show, that they've now authorized their own defeat. And again, I don't think you're going to see any big war. I don't think you're going to see riots of any real extreme. You don't have to go out and do anything, and I'm going to show you the comms now that prove this. We've had amazing comms come in this week. The 6th density negative entity is extremely wise. Eternal Scholar, thank you for donating 111 ZARs. The 6th density negative entity, which I guess it only happens for a split second, has to go positive. It observes the spiritual entropy, which means the falling apart, destruction occurring, due to the lack of ability to express the unity that 6th density by nature has to have. Thus, loving the Creator and realizing at some point that the Creator is not only the self, but it's also the other self as the self, this entity will consciously choose an instantaneous energy reorientation so that it may continue its evolution. So they're not saying that there's any other option. This is what always happens. So no matter how clever and evil and narcissistic and egotistical this being may be, it's like, darn it, I missed out on this. The big thing is you got to go positive or you're going to die. Okay, I'm either going to die or go positive. I have to go positive. That's what ends up happening. It's an instantaneous energy reorientation to continue its evolution. Isn't that fascinating? All right, so now we're at the midpoint. We're at the halfway point. And I want to show you the comms, the communications from the Alliance that came in this past week. One of the classic sources has been Dan Scavino. This one came in, one message there should be a space in there. I'm not going to bother to fix that now. But there was really 3 comms in one. So the first thing is you see fighter jets again. And of course, I have a company that is doing this business where we are bringing out aircraft that are going to be much less expensive. The B-21, they say costs $704 million a pop. Our SM-39, which I have right here, this is going to cost $85 million, okay? But it's going to be it's a spaceship, so it has things the B-21 can't do. It has anti-gravity capability. And again, we're going to use exotic coatings on the outside. It's going to be the fastest plane ever built. It's Next Generation Air Defense, or NGAD, NGAD. And so that is something that we now have available. And they are going to go into development. We have several major countries that want to build these. And their money is going to end up becoming jointly held with the U.S. And so the U.S. isn't going to want other countries to have something this good and not have it here. So I imagine this will be picked up by the U.S. military. But again, we're not saying that we want to take away contracts from other contractors. There's going to be a place for all different aircraft, including the B-21. We're just saying that why not have another option that you can also put money into where you can get a higher quantity of aircraft, because we really need to build up an Air Force. We need to have enough for our boundaries. This is why I ultimately went into the military, and I started to do this. Like, I consider what I am a soldier. I'm a soldier just like any other soldier. I'm out there trying to make sure that we don't get killed, that we will survive, and that we have healthy boundaries, which means protecting our nation's borders. It means protecting our borders with, yes, things like fighter jets. Because if you can't even afford to build them, then how are you going to defend yourself if somebody's invading? And what would we do if we had an alien invasion, for example? All these things factor in. So anyway, Dan Scavino, as you see here, it was May 26th. He's got the fighter jets in there. I'm not saying absolutely this is a David reference, but there's been many others that involve fighter jets that are very on the nose. And of course, the real key is that typically speaking, you look at the number of seconds in the video, and then you look back at the Alliance posts, the specific 17th letter of the alphabet, as we've talked about before. Don't want to be too specific, but you can figure out what that is. When you look at those posts, they have made many, many references where they're in a current situation. They can't really tell you what they want to say, but they put out a video that has a certain number of seconds. You count the number of seconds, in this case 22, and sometimes you also count the time that it was posted, and then you go back to the original posts, which again began in 2017, and you look up these numbers. And then you look up these numbers and you say, okay, is this relevant to what's going on right now? Well, this absolutely appears to be relevant. It's actually so relevant that it's incredibly shocking. I'm very, very surprised. So I'm not sure what happened. Some people drop away. We're down to 44.92 now. But again, there's this case where people are, they have to stay up late, like in Australia or England, to watch the show. Or get up early or stay up late, depending on where you are. So anyway, we do lose some people, but then they come back and watch the show the next day. Okay, so the basics here are we have a 22-second video that comes out at 11:32 a.m. Sufyan El Ngori just donated. Thank you very much. He says, I'm a fan for more than a decade now. So thank you very much. All right, so we're going to first look at post number 22, and this seems to be very relevant, okay? Who controls the NG, or National Guard? Why was the NG recently activated in select cities within the U.S.? So again, this was actually talked about by X22 Report, which is a very popular conservative radio show, and he deciphers these Dan Scavino messages. It's one of the main things he's doing. It's kind of like the main course. If Dan Scavino drops a comm, then that's going to be the main topic on any given night. So this is talking about something in the present. So don't look at it as something from 2017. Look at it as the present, okay? So the NG was recently activated, okay? This is talking about now. Can the NG work in coordination with the Marines? Obviously, they wouldn't ask it unless the answer was yes. Are there certain conditions that need to be satisfied in order to authorize this? Well, that's what's happening now. So get ready for some type of activity. That's the point. Get ready for some type of interesting activity. Then, what former president used the military to save the republic? And what occurred exactly? Well, look at what the sentence actually says. Using the military to save the republic. You can't do it with the justice system. But again, does that mean they're going to do a war? No, not at all. But there's going to be other types of law that are brought in that you haven't heard about before. There's going to be a few people who are arrested, and they're going to tell you who they are in just a minute. It's not going to be anything that bad. It's just going to be very amazing because now they're going to be broadcasting on the emergency messaging system. There might be a temporary request that you stay home. There might be certain operations that they have to do to create arrests in certain places. Look, this is real. If you think this is all BS and I'm just making this up, pay attention to what did they just say. What former president used the military to save the republic? Well, that was Abraham Lincoln. And it was just last week in my show. And again, I'm the fighter jet guy, and there was fighter jets in the comm, okay, in the communication. Just last week in my show, go back and watch it, I read you a quote from the Law of One about Abraham Lincoln, and now they're referring to Abraham Lincoln. In the quote from the Law of One, it said that he was not able to perform the job of freeing America like he needed to, and his soul volunteered to exit, and a new soul came in, an angelic soul that then transformed his personality, made him into the person who could finish the war and get the job done. So this is what they keep doing. I say something in my show, and it'll be Dan Scavino, or it'll be something that Trump actually says himself, or it'll be something that's said by Shadow of Ezra, and it's a direct cross-reference to some topic that I just brought up. So you got fighter jets, you got Lincoln, and then you got two comms in one with the 1132 and the 22. So this is telling us to expect that the Republic will be saved, and that through some administrative action, not war, but administrative action by the military, this is how it's going to be done. It's very, very exciting to me. What occurred exactly? Well, it was a temporary state of martial law, if you want to call it that. I think that's what we've been under ever since 2016, honestly. So don't be afraid of it. It's already here. This is the biggest drop we have ever provided on this board where we do these messages, Paul, it's called, study and prepare. The masses tend to panic in these situations, but look at this, folks, very important. No war, no civil unrest, clean and swift. No war, no civil unrest. There's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be distressing. It's not going to be a big problem. And it's going to happen fast, only in a few days. We're expecting no more than 10 days at the most. So it's going to be scary, but, you know, they're not really killing anybody. They're just doing arrests. Maybe if they get armed resistance, they might have to go through some of that. But it really looks like we're at the biting through point where they're actually not just teasing you anymore. I mean, believe me, I'm frustrated too. I'm tired of this going on so long. I'm tired of doing the show week after week, and I don't want you to feel like you're just grasping at straws or that you only have breadcrumbs of hope and nothing ever really happens. This is going to happen. The world will never be the same. Every television show and movie ever made once this happens is obsolete. Think about it. It's obsolete. Once we find out that this stuff is real, that the devil is real, that Satan is real, Lucifer is real, negative aliens are real, they've been here the whole time, they corrupted our governments. They've got people now doing ceremonies where they can see these things appearing in the room with them. Maybe not the aliens, but the demons for sure, these beings from the lower astral realms. Look, this is what the military wants us to know. This is what you have to do as a patriotic person if you want to serve. I'm doing military service. I am a soldier by doing this broadcast. That's all I need to be. I'm happy to just be a soldier. I don't need to be anything else. I'm very honored to be a soldier and to share this information with you. All right, so that was post number 22, using the military to save us with no war, no civil unrest, clean and swift. Wow. I mean, I'm not going to be involved in it. I'm not going to be doing anything. I'm going to be right here at home as well as you probably will be right at home. Stay at home. Watch the emergency broadcast. There's supposedly going to be multiple shows that'll be playing on your phone. Maybe 7 shows. That was one of the things we heard. It'll keep repeating. But then, okay, there was also 1132. So I went back and looked at 1132. It's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, not really that great. It says, thank you, Alan. Welcome aboard, freedom. So the word freedom, okay, that's cool. That seems to be good. But for whatever reason, and I'm not even really sure exactly why, if you go to watch that X22 report show, I think it was on Monday, he correlates 11:32 a.m. with post number 1332. Now, how would this happen? Well, I will posit this. Okay, 1332 could be like military time, And that would mean that it would be the equivalent of 1:32 p.m. Because remember, military use 24-hour time. So instead of it being, 12 noon and then it goes to 1 o'clock, it goes from 12 to 13 all the way up to 23. And then there's no 24, it goes back to 1. So 13:32 could be the equivalent of 1:32, and you have 11:32. So if you knock off one of the ones, you got 1:32. So that would be my best guess. But again, post number 1332, he might have more to it than that. Again, I don't have any time to listen to any shows right now. I'm way too busy. I'm running a company and I'm trying to do all this at the same time. Plus, I'm dealing with profound bankruptcy. So it all factors in. But, I like the idea of military time, 1:32, and so we got 13:32. Well, this is a very, very provocative post, and I do believe this is what he meant us to read. So check this out. Whoa, wait till you read this. This is the post. I've copied it into a slide. You can go look it up yourself. Fellow patriots, what you are about to learn, this is talking about in the very near future now, about freedom, right? It will not only scare you, but it will intensify your resolve to take back control. We haven't learned these things yet. They haven't told us the truth yet. People will be scared when they find out, when these broadcasts start happening, when they do what they just said in Post 22, using the military to save us. No war, no civil unrest. But there might not be civil unrest, but there's going to be a lot of people being afraid because, oh my gosh, wait a minute. This evil is going on? I had no idea. Wow, it's crazy. But you will want to resolve to take back control. The information that will become public will demonstrate pure evil. Let me just simplify it with those highlights. You're going to learn about pure evil, the most ridiculously horrific evil there could ever be imagined. What you are about to learn will scare you. The information will become public. It will further demonstrate the criminal and corrupt, pure evil, abuse of power that the administration undertook in joint efforts with domestic and foreign dignitaries. It is the business and the job of the military to get you educated about what this is, about the evil that is really there, and that's why I am a soldier doing what I need to do for them. Wow. So this is about to become public, about to learn. The snowball has begun rolling, and now there is no stopping it. D5. There's a whole long thing I wrote about D5 back on my website, Divine Cosmos. Stay the course, trust the plan, protective measures are in place, remain brave. We knew this day would come. They gave a link to a video. It's probably not there anymore. United we stand worldwide. Where we go one, we go all. We fight conspiracy no more. And then you have that infamous letter. So there is no stopping it. Remain brave. Do not give in to fear. There are protective measures in place, and it will not be a conspiracy anymore. This is going to become commonly accepted truth. Okay, so this was the first comm. It was on May 26th, and it was like, whoa, man. I mean, I got really excited. I was like, something is getting ready to happen. This is the big one. They're saying what you're about to learn about pure evil. The military is going to be used. It's like, whoa, finally. I mean, we don't have to wait for November. This is not about the November election. It's happening now. It could be in a week. I have no idea. I mean, I'm not directly involved. I just am trying to read the tea leaves like everybody else. I'm just analyzing and deciphering this information. Okay, so now I want to take you through the headlines and then contrast those with the comms that we were getting. So the next headline that I think is relevant, the global outrage that has occurred after these strikes occurred, these military strikes. This is from Zero Hedge. It says, global outrage after deadly strike on tent camp in this particular location. And they say, okay, the strike was carried out against legitimate targets under international law, but again, global outrage. So, they believe that they're behaving according to law. Well, the military has their own laws, and they're going to use those laws to do what they need to do. So this, again, it seems like very, very few people, even the people in the small country itself, that most of the people in this country don't want this to happen. Most of the rest of the world don't want this to happen. And there's just a few influencers out there saying, oh, we need to give them as much time as possible. I don't agree with that. I think that there's always got to be a place for diplomacy. There's always got to be a place for accepting a surrender if they offer it. There's always got to be a place for taking a pause, allowing people to eat food, giving them the relief supplies they need. If that pier broke off and the pier that was supposed to provide aid, do you think that that wasn't the result of weather weapons? I do. They don't want anybody getting any aid. They want to create a mass catastrophe here. They want to win the war, right? And they've already said, this is what we want to do. We want to keep it going indefinitely. And then you have some influencers out there that are trying to coerce you into saying, oh yeah, you know what? We gotta let this happen. We got to keep it going. That's exactly how you authorize your planet being destroyed. If you say, yes, we got to kill all of them, we got to more war, more bloodshed, more violence, let's do it. Let's get in there. No, you always got to look for another way out. You always got to look for a more ethical path. So again, I don't want to be too strident about this because everybody's down on them right now, and I don't want to add to that voice. I'm very pro-Semitic. I am not anti-Semitic. My best friend from high school, his name is Jude. He has Hebrew symbols right here on his neck. Unfortunately, now he has to sometimes wear a scarf when he goes outside because there's anti-Semitism, which I think is crazy. So again, I'm not into the whole anti-Semitism thing at all. I think it's disgusting. And at the same time, you can't judge a country by the leadership. And so if the leaders are trying to do this and the people are against it, it has to be taken more seriously. We can't just turn our heads and ignore humanitarian crisis and ignore suffering. We have to be willing to do what needs to be done. And in this case, again, administrative solutions are coming. And there's an arrest warrant out for him right now. Oh, we don't care about that. Yeah, the ICC, whatever, they want to arrest him. Nah, we don't even care. You're on the run? You don't even care about being arrested? But then you're going to go after Trump for bookkeeping errors? Oh, well, he was interfering with the election. That's really serious. That's 34 felonies. Right, but then he runs away from the arrest warrant. Oh, that doesn't matter. Yeah, let's just keep going. We kill as many as we can. We got to get this done. Might last all year. We don't care. Just get rid of everybody. We don't care. Just starve them all out, whatever it takes. Get it done. No. This is crazy. Okay? So not only is he on the run from the arrest warrant, but then we have the Pope makes this shocking statement. I'm not going to read this, but he said, I never intended to offend. He apologizes after this homophobic slur leak. So, whoa. The Pope is saying stuff like, you would never, ever catch me saying things like this and on a hidden recording. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I didn't really mean it. No. I grew up around gay people. I grew up in a college. As I said, I was in the gay dorm. It's not a big deal, and you certainly don't want to hate people for it. If somebody feels that this is who they are and they've known it their whole life, I love you. It's fine. I'm not going to participate in it, but still, I'm not going to judge anybody, and I'm certainly not going to be hateful, and I'm not going to indulge in hate speech. So I'm being way, way more careful about this than I used to be. I always was careful, but the point is you just don't want to say anything now. You got to be very, very, very careful now. So this was crossing way, way over the line. The next thing I want to say, the next headline was, this pervasive fear has set in this particular group. And that's the one on the bottom. Dems are absolutely freaking out over Biden. Oh my God, democracy might end. Well, there's some strange situation where they're still saying he's going to run. It hasn't been a situation where Michelle Obama has stepped in, like some people thought for a long time. X22 report, like every night, Michelle Obama's coming. Michelle Obama's, I don't think so. I think she's not wanting to do that. I think she's like, there's no way I'm stepping into this stuff. I'll be totally eaten alive by everybody. And then on the same headline, these were the main headlines of the day, federal judge denies Smith's request for gag order. It was wholly lacking in substance and professional courtesy. So this is, again, pervasive fear. That's what these headlines are showing us. They are absolutely freaking out. So what do you do when you're freaking out? If you're negative, well, you try to take down your opponent by any way you can. Don't let it be a fair fight. You got to try to make him an indicted felon. So now the next headline is, as we get up to this right before we got the judgment, this is now May 29th, the words that were being used for how crazy this whole thing was include unusual, unbelievable, and insane. The headlines kept getting more outrageous. So, because, as you remember, the judge is like, it's 444. You don't even have to agree on what the crime is. As long as you have one of these three, we can just kind of piece this whole thing together. Well, it's completely illegal. It's against all statutes of written law going back to the Roman Empire. It's a joke. It's just, again, unusual, unbelievable, and insane. So here's that. Judge issues unusual order as jury begins deliberations in this hush money trial. And judge says that the jurors do not have to unanimously agree on what crime he's guilty of. Oh my gosh. So then it goes into the words insane and unbelievable. This is insanity. Judge issues unbelievable jury instructions. And at the same time this is going on, they're desperately trying to bring this guy down. There's arrest warrants out for this particular leader. They launch airstrikes into Syria, and they're killing and wounding civilians. This is like they're trying anything they can. And I don't think they is not just one thing, right? There was traditionally two factions in the DS. There's the Rockefeller faction, and there's the Rothschild faction. The Rothschild faction would be more of what we would traditionally call the so-called Illuminati. The Rockefeller faction, however, was the American faction expressed in the Bush administration, where you have George W. and 9/11 happens, and then you get these two targets being attacked in the Middle East, right near the small country. You get Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, what we heard was that the Rockefeller faction was very thoroughly infiltrated and blackmailed by the small country. And so the small country, as you remember back in the Snowden era, back around 2012, 2013, when all this started to come out, there was something called PRISM, and we found out that all of the world's bulk data capture, all of this surveillance was funneling through the small country, through the infrastructure they had there in a program called PRISM. I wrote about it at the time. And they use things like the little island, you know, that we've heard about so many times, where bad things are being done on this island off the coast of Florida. They use entrapment, they use blackmail. They don't want people to be free. They want to be controlling whoever their enemies are. Now, the Rockefeller and the Rothschild factions are in a fight to the death. The so-called Rothschild faction, they hate Israel. They want to see it go up in flames. I mean, they're no friend to Israel. So you have two different groups that are using the same tradecraft, the same war tactics, the same abominable things against each other. So, and then you see it in politics. The Rockefeller faction was always used to be the Republican side, and then the Rothschild faction was the Democrat side. So the Democrat side is all about climate change. That's why Al Gore is saying, we're going to be all dead in 10 years from climate change. The Rockefeller faction is big into the oil business. That's how they were making their money. They're the Rockefellers, Standard Oil. So they got to protect the oil business. They got to protect Iraq. They got to protect the drug business, the heroin business. So they protect Afghanistan, because that's how they're getting their money, and that's how they fund everything. So these are two different types of funding. The other faction, the Rothschild faction, primarily is funding itself through big business and banking and high finance. But then the Rockefeller faction is predominantly financed through oil and drugs. I mean, the other side has drugs too. But again, you got to remember, this was a fight to the death. Now, the Rothschild faction has been largely defeated. So now there's one negative faction left, the Rockefeller faction, that's still fighting. And so they're doing things like, again, these airstrikes, because they want to get the war going. They need that distraction, because if the ICC catches up and arrests him, then they don't get what they want anymore. So they got to keep telling you, we got to keep going. No, there's ways to do diplomacy. There's ways out of this situation. There's always a peaceful way. You can't tell me that force is the only answer. It never is. So as we go on, we then have another headline here. The case is rigged and disgraceful. And he was found guilty on 34 counts. And he said this was a rigged and disgraceful trial. I think everybody pretty much agrees with that. I would be surprised if anybody thinks it's okay, unless you're just very afraid. You think he's the Antichrist. Oh my God, if he ever gets back in office again, it's so bad. No, the problem is that both the Rockefeller and the Rothschild factions are going to lose if he gets reelected, because they have he will then have the ability to bring that to fruition. So they're so afraid, oh my God, this is public enemy number one. We can't let this guy do anything. We can't let him win. And then at the same time, they're doing this crazy stuff where, you know what? In Boston, you can do whatever you want. You can shoplift. You can, I mean, my God, why in the world, as the mayor, would you want to vote for this by the very principle of balance in the law of one? You are authorizing all of those crimes that you think are okay to happen to you in not just one lifetime, but potentially multiple lifetimes. It's this poor lady. I mean, she's going to have so much trouble moving forward in her life just from a universal spiritual principle. We don't have to do anything. Don't bother her. Don't go after her. Don't even get mad at her. Just feel sorry for her. Because if you're voting to have all these crimes be made legal, oh yeah, you know what? Go ahead and rob people. Go ahead and steal. We don't care. Go ahead and commit crimes, commit assault, whatever it is. You know what? We're just not going to prosecute this anymore. How could this even be happening? How could it be happening right in front of our faces? So now the next big com comes, and this is amazing, where they use the word match point. And again, this is right after the 34 indictments. Is like, oh my gosh, that they posted this, but only on the TG, Telegram. So on TG, and then he even deleted it off of the main shadow page, and it's only on the Ezra Cohen page. But what we see is a motorcade, and the motorcade has the word match point associated with it. So here it is, here it is up close. I just kind of zoomed in on that. So so the motorcade, by the way, it's all like police and security. And then they had another post with police and security that says, he's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Do you really think we would ever let him go to jail? Absolutely not. That will never happen because, again, it would authorize, if they tried to do that, it authorizes the alliance in this principle of balance to do countermeasures. And again, it's awakened the whole public. So what does match point actually mean? Let's consult the dictionary. I went to dictionary.com just so you can see it for yourself. The point that if one would enable the scorer or the scorer's side to win the match. The second one doesn't really matter. It's like in bridge, the bridge game, old ladies play bridge with playing cards. But again, the point that if one would allow you to win the match, holy crap. I mean, I looked up post number 18. It's kind of relevant, but not enough that I need to bring it in. It was an 18-second video. But the point is they're telling us this one thing, the fact that they actually did this, the fact that they actually indicted him on like 34 counts, they just lost. They lost everything. This was the final mistake that we were waiting for them to make because it's just so lawless. It's so crazy. It's like, whoa, are you freaking kidding me? You're going to go that far? Well, guess what? Now wait for it. Something's going to happen, and we certainly do not need to wait till November. Please, please, can we stop with this? I am so sick of the November bias. I can't stand it. Anybody starts saying it's all leading up to the election, I'm like, no. It's going to happen a lot earlier than that. We're getting comms constantly telling us we're not going to be waiting. What you are about to learn about pure evil will shock you. What president used the military to save the republic? Clean and swift, no war, no civil unrest. That's not an election at all. That's not what we're talking about at all. Okay? It's the match point. We're there now. It's happening now. You guys excited about this? Let's see what you have to say. David Ishmael wants to do a live stream with you. I haven't heard of him. Does David have a different donation platform? Okay, well, yeah, as I said before, you can go to divinecosmos.com. They have the option to correct the corruption in psychopaths' DNA only with their consent and agreement. Otherwise, it's discernment. MAGA, make America great again. What about the ascension? Will this kick off all this? Yes, the arrests lead to the first wave of ascension, which Michael says is going to happen by 2025. Ooh, Marcia Wood donated $100. Thank you very much, Marcia. Paulina S. just donated. Lots of love from Finland. And Marcia said, God bless you and girly. I had a dream recently where I saw 4 moons. Somebody says, that was Justin Ritchie. Louise Boone says, very excited. Thanks for all you do and for this information. Julia Ponte says, I love this message. David, I had a dream where Arnold Schwarzenegger stole my wife. Consider this a divorce. Oh my God. Okay. Believe with your hearts and intuition, not with your eyes, says Scarlet Fire. David, I assume the TG channel in your name is not yours. Yes, it's Ezra Cohen or Shadow of Ezra. That's where you got to go. And it is hot stuff. Cynthia Marie Brewer says, thank you. I won't make it to 2025 if my circumstances don't change very soon. We will all pray for you, Cynthia, and we all pray for everyone to stay alive so that you can get to be here for this, because this is very important. Oh my God, David, please do a collab with Ismail Perez. I guess I'll have to look him up. I've never heard of him. Are we going to get physical copies of Michael Prophecies? Yes, I want to start moving into that. Kellyanne donated $10. David, I'm curious. Mariners says, how's Corey Good doing? Corey is moving into nonfiction or fictional, I guess, fantasy writing that's based on truth, and he's got some cool things going on, television, video games, etc. And I have just recently helped him kind of tweak one of the stories he was working on. I said he had to work on the villain a little more. But yeah, I'm very proud of him. He's got some deals coming in. It makes me very concerned if he's not going to make it, because I can't let one of my own team members down. So that's why I did the conference, and we spoke together on stage. You know, there's a lot of people that want to hate on him. I get it, okay, but you know, we are all in this together, and so I want to make sure that his family is going to be okay. David, yes, Monica says, the yin to the yang, the balance must be. Do you like Steely Dan? Are you into fusion? Yeah, I love Steely Dan, actually. Steve Gadd's drumming on Aja is like so amazing. I mean, I love it. Oh, when that drum break comes, I'm like, oh, it makes me just go crazy. I just want to get in there, man. So yeah, I love Steely Dan. Allison Carr says, I like Corey, he's a good guy. David, do you think the next window of opportunity for a mass arrest is on July 4th, Independence Day? That's in 30 days. I have no idea when it's going to happen, but it definitely is going to be happening. Rafal Chekluski says he donated $11.11. Thank you very much. I love Steely Dan. Somebody says I saw him in 2011. They're undeniable, says Mike P. Scientific Mystic. So anyway, let's go back to the slides. Thank you guys so much for all that. So match point. I mean, this is the big thing. That is the game-winning move that was just made. So actually, I'm going to have some coconut water now. I got to get a little blood sugar going. Starting to drain my brain here. So the next one is very provocative. Check this out. It says, wiped off the face of the earth. And remember, we had a comm, I'll show you what that is in just a second, but we had a comm earlier along, a beautiful, beautiful video they posted on Telegram, TG, where they said there's only one thing left to do. There's only one country left. And I don't even think it's a small country, because again, there's already an arrest warrant out. It's all this stuff is happening. The wagons are circling. I think it's this other country where there's still a war going on. And that just seems like it's never going to end. Like, what's going to happen? But no, they're on the very end too. There's something big is getting ready to happen there. And so check out this communication. Oh, we had another donation. Let's see who that was. That was Humble Pie, $20. Thank you very much. And another one, Ricky T11. Thank you, David. Celebrating your third super on a live stream. Corey Kente Galego says, yes, cannabis will stop your dreams, especially THC. CBD much less so. I would agree with that. THC can provide a way for you to see for a while, but then you pay the price by losing your dreams. I totally, totally agree. Thank you for saying that. It's controversial. I mean, it can help you with PTSD, but you really got to take it in stride and not overuse it. And I just had to point at diminishing returns. I'm very, very happy to be clean. Okay, so let's get back to our slide now. Again, wiped off the face of the earth is what we're looking at here. This was on May 29th. It says this particular country knows it is finished. It's in the Telegraph, and then they said wiped off the face of the earth. So we also know that Uncle Vlad is mobilizing like 300,000 more people into the army. And so like big stuff is coming. And there's going to be another comm that they give a couple days later about that there's major military activity going on in the Middle East. So big things are getting ready to happen that are going to wrap up the whole thing, put a bow tie on it. And we're going to find out some very dark stuff about this particular country. It's not going to be fun for anybody, but they tell you exactly what it is. So right in the middle of while all of this stuff is going on, you got 34 indictments, it's all this crazy stuff, there is a massive, massive solar flare. So check this out. This was from Everyman Prepping, says the huge sunspot caused the last solar storm. It's made its way back around to face Earth again, and it just produced an X 1.4 class solar flare. This is massive. So once again, the sun is actually the logos. It's actually a conscious, intelligent super being in unity with all creation. And it's giving us these energetic pulses. And as each of these pulses comes out, the Christ consciousness keeps rising. And that means that negativity is exposed and it cannot hold on. So this is a very exact example of this where, yes, right in the middle of while they did this to 245, to Trump, here's this big solar flash. And it's a precursor to what we were just hearing about from Garabandal. Again, I was so amazed that when the last solar flash came around, it was less than just 3 days after I did a show about the prophecy of the Virgin Mary at Garabandal, where they said there's going to be a massive solar event that allows everybody to see the true nature of their soul. And then apparently we go back to normal, and they try to debunk it. Sorry, I got a hiccup. They try to debunk it as it's just some solar event. It made everybody temporarily hallucinate. It's nothing real. Don't worry about it. Wait a minute. Let's just take this very soberly. So once again, the sun is going crazy. It's doing new stuff, and it's correlated with us. This is part of the mass awakening. As we awaken more, the sun is going to do more. And as these people are arrested, we can expect very big solar activity that's literally going to kickstart this thing that the Virgin Mary and Archangel Michael and Garabandal called the warning, the big reveal. Okay, so then the Alliance gave us another interesting comm here. On May 30th, they said there are no hostages. And this is another one they migrated over from the shadow of Ezra Page on TG to just Ezra Cohen. What does that mean? Well, I think it means that none of them are left alive. And so there isn't even any reason. They don't want anybody to know this, so that's another reason why they'd want to drag it out for so long. And I'm talking again about the small country. So I think that some very big stuff is coming our way, and it's not going to take very long. There's an arrest warrant out there. There's lots of different ways that an arrest warrant can be filed and then enacted. And again, I think it's going to be as peaceful as possible, but don't be surprised if something actually happens. Just because he doesn't want it to happen doesn't mean it won't. I mean, Nicki Minaj just got arrested. She said, do you know who I am? Yeah, we do. And we knew who P. Diddy was too, and we didn't care about that either. He hasn't even been arrested yet, but now we find out all these things are being learned. So then, after this, everybody's kind of in shock, all this crazy 34 indictments, we got another communication where they confirmed on Twitter now, on X, that he just won the election by this one thing the one mistake they made. It says he just won the 2024 election, and they're showing Air Force One and a shadow on the ground. And, shadow of Ezra, so there's the shadow. This one had 129,000 views. So then there was another post about the security around Trump. And here it is on May 31st. It says, believe it or not, the media has half the country believing that a man with this level of security will be spending time in jail. So you had all these police, and then as the video goes on, you see that they all start shaking his hand. Has 624,000 views, if you see that down at the bottom. Pretty amazing. And it's exactly 1 minute long, which is 60 seconds. So, okay, I said, well, let's go check post number 60, see if that's relevant. You better believe it is. So there's a link if you want to go look it up. That website still works, okay? Thank God. I mean, that's the only one that does. And then they said you can count the people who know the full picture of what the Alliance is really doing on 2 hands. Of those less than 10 people, only 3 of them are non-military. Why is this relevant? Well, you can kind of figure it out. It's a military operation, and they have to have OPSEC, operational security. They do not want anybody learning about this, and they're keeping a very, very tight, keeping it very close to the vest. Okay, so nobody can honestly say they know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm just reading prophecies and reading clues like everybody else, and I'm doing a show where I try to analyze this stuff at great personal risk. This obviously, I'm at the risk of something happening to me, like what happened at 45 or what happened to Alex Jones. I'm going to keep going. Like I said, I have an honor and a duty to perform, And I feel that there needs to be a balance of positive and negative. If people are afraid, I want to show you, you know what, let's not worry about this. Please don't take up any type of hateful position. Don't go out there and write hate. Just let them do their job. This is all part of the awakening, and you have to be wise enough to see that. Why is this relevant? Game theory. So only 3 non-military people, probably one of them are 45. Or is 45. Probably one of them is Dan Scavino, I would imagine, too. Outside of a potential operator who has been dialed in with orders specific to his or her mission, nobody else has this information, and the operators who do will never divulge. And then Alice in Wonderland, which is, again, a code phrase, apparently is about Hillary and, countries that she's working with. Okay, so post number 60, it checks out. They had a 60-second video, and it says, we're never going to let anything happen to him. He's never going to get arrested. He's got all the security around him. And they say, we're never going to divulge the truth of our plan. It's almost entirely military. It's a military operation to stop us from being taken over, ultimately by negative extraterrestrials. So then they had another really provocative one on Lindsey Graham. This was on, again, May 30th. It says, he defends his vision of dropping a nuclear bomb on Palestine. Oh, nobody likes hearing it, but I know what my country did when we were attacked by the Japanese. Yeah. That's just great, man. Wow. Like, slow clap for Lindsey Graham, you f***ing idiot. You idiot. What the? Are you really going to say that? Are you that crazy? You know that if you advocate nuking people, that authorizes it to happen to you, right? You know that from universal law, right? So do you really want to be incinerated? That's what karma does. Nobody's going to do it, but it will happen. Maybe even in hell. Who knows? This is dumb. I mean, who would say, oh my God, are you that compromised? And you're going to drop it on Palestine? What? You drop it on Palestine? I mean, mind blown. But again, let's look at the video. Ricky T11 donated again. Thank you, David. We're over 5,000 viewers now. We're at 5177. Somebody says small country is finished. It's almost over. Yeah, it's probably true. Hard to understand the 34 charges thing unless you watch this video. Some supper's ready 880. Which shadow of Ezra is real? You got to spend some time looking, but on Twitter it's pretty easy to find. And you can tell by the number of subscribers, and there are fake ones too. Total Todd just donated. Thank you. Could anyone have predicted about the solar flare? The sun is so active. Yeah, I mean it's pretty amazing what's going on here. The solar flare is one of the most exciting aspects of this whole situation. So again, let's go back to the post now. And again, you notice the length of the video. It's 35 seconds long. What's our magic formula? We got to look at the post number 35. Okay, let's do that. Let's see if it sounds like it means anything for us. And it sure does. So this is November 1st, 2017. And it's talking about the arrest they're getting ready to do. POTUS, which I think is talking about 45, obviously. He will be well insulated, protected on Air Force One or whatever his own jet would be, and abroad, specific locations classified while these operations are conducted due to the nature of the entrenchment. What operations? Oh, that's right. We're talking about the arrests. It's a direct reference to the arrests. And again, if you're making these kind of threats, nuclear threats, you're authorizing more intervention. You're authorizing more things to be done. So when these operations are conducted, they will keep him hidden and protected in specific classified locations. And they just said, we're not going to let anything happen to him. It is time to take back our country and make America great again. That is not talking about the election. Military is the only way forward. It's going to be way before November. Please, can we stop with this November crap? I'm so sick of it. I can't even listen to it. It's time to make America great again. Let us salute and pray for the brave men and women in uniform. I would consider myself to be that. It's a pink shirt, granted, but it's the same kind. I got Trump slippers. That's a uniform, right? Wouldn't you say? Okay, fair enough. Let us salute and pray for the brave men and women in uniform who will undertake this assignment. Oh my God, it's so on the nose. To bring forth peace, unity, and return power to the people. Do you really think they're not going to do anything except just allow the election to come out in 5-6 months from now? No. Way before then, something's going to happen. Way before then. They're going to protect 45, and they're going to take back the country. Oh my gosh. And it's all going to be administrative and legal. No war, no civil unrest, clean and swift. It's all part of what they're saying. It is our hope that this message reaches enough people to make a meaningful impact. We cannot yet telegraph this message through normal methods for reasons I'm sure everyone here can understand, of course. Follow the questions from the previous threads and remain calm. The primary targets are within D.C. There you go. And remain at the top on both sides. Rockefeller and Rothschild faction is, again, Republican and Democrat. The old school Republicans, old school Democrats is Rockefeller and Rothschild. So the primary targets are in D.C. And it says the spillover in the streets will be quickly shut down. So again, if something like this starts happening, just stay home, follow what you're supposed to do. It probably won't last more than 10 days. It doesn't look like there's going to be a power blackout, but there probably will be an internet blackout. So you might not even have any internet access except that you can watch these 7 videos that are on constant rotation. I don't really know what they are. Again, nobody has the plan but them. But they've given out a lot of different comms over the years. So this is a very, very shocking prophecy. Primary targets are in D.C., and the spillover will be quickly shut down. Look for more FFs, stay alert, be vigilant, and above all, please pray. And they actually quote the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Love is patient, love is kind. And that was from the book of Luke. God bless my fellow Americans 41020, which is DJT, or the initials of Donald J. Trump. So again, they very much respect the Bible. They very much respect what Christians would call God or the Creator. And that's good, because we want somebody like that fighting against pure evil, which they said that's what we're up against. So there's great respect here. And they're actually quoting from the Bible in these posts, which means they respect Christians and they respect God, whatever you want to call it. So there's going to be more of these false events, these false Fs that we were just talking about. Stay alert, be vigilant. And then right after they say, look for more false Fs, the very next thing they do, here's the look for more false Fs again. The very next thing they do is they show you 2 black swans, which could easily be talking about that very concept of like a bad event that takes place that scares everybody, creates some kind of atrocity or something like that. So this really shocked me. Once I saw this, I was like, whoa, man, it's all coming down all around us. So check this out. There it is, Shadow of Ezra. This was again on TG. Has 144,000 views. That's amazing. And you got 2 black swans with no other commentary. Sage Creek just only $20. Thank you very much. People like Lindsay should be taken away immediately. Yes, peacefully. Maybe so. Again, let's zoom in on those 2 guys. Here they are. This is just utterly mind-blowing. It really is like, whoa, okay, we're not going to be waiting very long. There's some crazy stuff getting ready to happen. It's not going to take very long. And this actually gave us the poster for my latest show, one that you're in now, Behold a Black Swan or Two. I used the content-aware fill function on Photoshop to fill in the rest, make it a little wider. Had to tweak it on the bottom a little bit, but 2 black swans, I mean, what could that even be? I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't want to speculate because I really don't have any idea, but it's certainly very, very troubling, disturbing, you know, whatever euphemism you want. Like black swan, in case you don't know, is in reference to massive, unpredictable, disruptive events. So for example, when the Delaware, whatever it was, that bridge collapsed, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, that was a black swan event. If there's an economic collapse, that would be a black swan event. If a country attacks another country, that would be a black swan event. If Russia suddenly goes in on this country that they're fighting with full-blown new levels of force, that could be considered one. If they try to do the bird flu thing and they say, oh my God, well, they're already killing off a bunch of chickens, but what if they say, oh my God, it's migrated to people? There's a show on Apple TV Plus I've been watching called Dark Matter. And it should be called Killing Jennifer Connelly. They've already killed her twice in the show. I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail, but yeah, there's different realities. The whole show now seems to be designed for what they just did in the last episode, which is they got this corridor where they open up these different doors and it takes them into different parallel realities. And the episode they just did was like a flashcard game of end-of-the-world apocalypse scenarios. Death by plague, death by fire, death by flood, death by massive, 7-inch long killer bees that manage to kill everybody on Earth but multiply exponentially. And very, very disturbing. Jennifer Connelly ends up, getting this plague, and he goes and finds her in that reality, and her left eye is all black. And what did they say the bird flu does when it gets to a human? Oh, it makes your eyes bleed. Well, sure enough, they say, your eyes start bleeding. The last 6 hours are really rough. So they give him morphine to give to her to kill her. So, and Jennifer Connelly is wonderful. She's like America's sweetheart, and they've offed her twice. It's like, well, how many more times is she going to die in this show? My God. So if they try to pull something with the bird flu, it'll make everybody scared of that. That could be another example. But again, I don't really think this is going to go very far. They just want you terrified. They want you afraid. So I don't know what these Black Swan events are, but they have not been wrong. And that's why I made this into the poster. I didn't even bother to show my face. I'm like, let's just show the Black Swans because this is it. And look at all these comms. The only way forward is the military, no war, clean and swift. Whoa, man. I mean, it's all coalescing. This is happening now. We're at still 5,000 viewers. That's incredible. We're doing better than other shows. So I'm very happy about that. So the next thing that happened is that within 24 hours, he raised $53 million. And now they're bringing in the line, all PR is good PR, or no such thing as bad publicity. He may gain huge publicity, and he can claim to be the victim of political lawfare. Yes, and they said it's a match point. Match point means that's what's going to win the game. And he just won the election. And then here's the shot about how people are donating so much. I just donated $300,000. And they say, speak up, don't be silenced. Freedom of speech is worth nothing if you're afraid to use it. So then they're trying to do all this stuff. And this is why I say, if anybody is stupid, they want to blame all of us for that. So please don't say stupid things online. Reuters claims that supporters want riots and violent retribution following the verdict. And they point to comments on various pro-platforms, including, Truth, and Gateway Pundit was another one they mentioned, and Twitter was another one they mentioned. So literally, please internalize this and understand what I'm telling you. If even one person screws up and makes threats, they're going to try to judge all of us by that and use that as an authorization to do unspeakable harm. So it really is important to just let go of this thing, trust the authorities. They're sending out these comms. You got to read how many seconds is the video, and then what post is that, and what does that post say? Oh, wow, post 1332, post 22, post 34. It's like, and all this crazy stuff is coming out at us right now. So now I want to talk about these really funny synchronicities that came out as a result of this case and all this stuff. So let's just go through them. This came out on May 31st. So we're going to zoom in on the bottom here of this particular post from MJ Truth. Anyone notice a pattern yet? He raised $34 million. He released a 34-second video of an old man this morning. The judge announced that the jury could split 4-4-4, and 3 4s is 3-4 or 34, and he was found guilty on 34 counts. 17, the letter of the alphabet, times 2 would also be 34. So these are weird synchronicities. I mean, the 34 million thing, that can't really be controlled, but that was the first news headline that everybody got. If you actually added it up for the full 24 hours, it became 53 million. But at the end of the first day, like around midnight, it was up to 34. So it's like a weird numerical synchronicity pattern that might partially be done on purpose with like 34-second video. But these are interesting synchronicities. And again, it's all pointing towards something. And here's another one that he wrote. And this was probably done on purpose now. He entered the conference at 11:05. He ended it at 11:39, speaking for exactly 34 minutes. But wait, there's the best one of all. This is the one I really can't even, it blows my mind. He was found guilty on the very day of Joan of Arc, the holiday for Joan of Arc, the feast day of Joan of Arc, who is the patron saint of prisoners and the hero for patriots. Is not that so funny and so ironic that on that the very day that's the day that they did it? And I don't think they planned that, but it's a synchronicity, and it obviously shows. I mean, Joan of Arc was a martyr. I don't think Trump is going to be martyred. They say nothing's going to happen to him. He's not even going to go to jail. But the point is, wow, it again is like a universal synchronicity correlated with the solar flash, the recent solar the flare that we just saw, X-class flare, very big one. And it happens to be on Joan of Arc Day. Oh my gosh. And there's all these 34 synchronicities. So this is just fantastic. I mean, like, they can't help but expose themselves. They don't even realize they're doing it. So then final moves of how they're going to bring this thing to an end are being telegraphed, and I think this is very, very significant. This was posted on May 31st, again on TG. First of all, it says major movements of U.S. military in the Middle East. That is not something they put on X or Twitter. That is something they only put on the one that they can't put it on Twitter because it's a little bit too crazy, a little bit too likely to be banned or blocked, or community notes have decided that this is not helpful, right? Major movements of military in the Middle East could be affecting both of the wars that are still going on. And it says U.S. military. This is not something that is openly, I think it's classified work that's being done, but the final stage is being set for military intervention, military activity. There's already wars going on. What's going to happen next? We don't know. It'll probably all be covert. It'll probably be nothing anybody even knew happened, but they're telling you they're doing major movements. The word major is very significant. Then the second one down, and again, I have to be very careful about what I do and do not include in the things that I read, as you can probably tell. So Z's wife and trafficking. And then this links back to a post on X. And so let's go read that. It says at the bottom, I'm going to read you the whole thing. This is incredibly, incredibly shocking. And I'm going to have to read like only half of the words to get through this, okay? But here we go. So here's the whole thing, if you want to zoom in, and then we'll, I can't even really see how many views it's had down there. But anyway, we're just going to read the stuff. Z's wife and allegations. Human rights activists from the Foundation to Battle Injustice have acquired evidence suggesting that a non-profit organization affiliated with OZ, the wife of the president, is involved in the capturing and export of minors from this particular country to certain individuals in Western countries. The Foundation has identified both blank and European organizations participating in this dark practice, as well as the routes used for their transportation to various international destinations. Oh my God. And so this is going to go public, folks. This is all going to become something that everybody learns about. And it's going to be scary, and it's going to be pure evil, as they were just saying. You're seeing now the final stages of what this is going to be. Once they make this announcement, everybody is going to be like, oh my God, and they're going to have evidence, I'm sure. But then it goes on, there's more. It gets worse. Listen to this, oh my God. It uncovered the names of prominent Western individuals and public figures linked to these networks that facilitate this criminal trafficking. Yikes. Can you imagine when this goes public? The children are transported to countries like UK, Germany, and France, where they are sold to foster families or handed directly over to perpetrators. The Foundation's investigation has revealed a British charity organization's involvement with these circles and identified, oh my God, individuals close to the Windsor royal dynasty responsible for this exploitation. Yikes. That's going to bring the whole thing down. And remember, they're not making any public appearances right now. There's an election going on in the UK. All the royal family's hiding out, and they're all going to be implicated in this. It's shocking, shocking. Save the Children, an international NGO based in London, has allegedly been assisting in this exportation. Yeah, isn't that ironic, right? They're not saving them at all. Assisting in the exportation of these minors for adoption, following OZ's visit to the UK at the end of 2022. That will bring the whole thing down. And they're telegraphing now. It's all correlated with movements of military, the stuff that's going to come out. It's very disturbing. The whole reason this war is going on is to stop this from happening, actually. So then we see the poster here, and this one has now had 312,000 views. So people are really paying attention. Now, in the last show, I had mentioned the whole show was called Teachings of Honor and Duty, and I said I'm going to keep on going. Well, guess what? This is exactly what 45 said. He mentioned honor, and he said he's going to keep going. And here's the post. This was from Storm Rider, which is another contentious and interesting channel on Telegram. I don't know if I believe everything they say, but it's very fascinating. It's worth looking at, in my opinion. It's a very sad thing that's happening in our country. In a way, I'm honored because somebody has to do it, and I might as well keep going and be the one. So again, this is the kind of stuff that I'm saying is why I believe that my work is being paid attention to, because if you remember, my last show was called Teachings of Honor and Duty, and I said in the show, you know, even though all this threat is going up against me, I'm going to keep on going. And now you have 45 saying the same thing. I don't want to say the word that starts with T too many times because it adds to the weight on my score, if you will, because that's what they listen to is the audio transcript. So again, Teachings of Honor and Duty, I had the word honor in the title. I said I'm going to keep going, and then he happens to say the same thing. So you tell me this is just a coincidence? Well, then how many coincidences can there be before it's the straw that breaks the camel's back? Come on. I mean, anybody who's trying to tell me that they're not interested in what I have to say, and somebody with this kind of platform with 7 camera angles, beautiful slides, live stream, promoting this message, of course they're happy I'm doing this. They keep sending out these comms, and I'm the one who's brave enough to decipher them, give them credit, tell you where to go, tell you what the links are, how to find this information. I'm not ripping it off. I'm not trying to make money without giving them credit. You know, I'm not trying to steal the information. I'm not trying to say, oh, I came up with this stuff on my own. No, I'm showing you where it came from. And if you have a thinking mind, you can see, yeah, this is clearly correlated. Then they did it again. A direct reference to William Cooper after we borrowed his title. So this show was called Behold a Black Swan or Two, and I was admittedly honoring the classic William Cooper book, Behold a Pale Horse. And he was the original guy who was out there, you know, as like the Alex Jones of his era. I mean, I read Behold a Pale Horse in college of 1991 or 2. And I was blown away by the data that was in there. It opened my mind so much. So then sure enough, right after he says honor and I'm going to keep on going, the same wording I used, they do this whole post on, wouldn't you know, William Cooper. Right after the title of the show that I announced publicly, I announced it on, I guess, Thursday that I was going to call it this. Then they do this incredible post that directly cross-references William Cooper. Do you really think they would do this if they hated me? Do you really think they would do this if they didn't want to give me any publicity and they didn't want to have any connection to me because, oh, they think I'm insane? Well, we're going to see where that comes in just a minute. But yes, so Behold a Pale Horse is what I based this title of the show on today. And then they come out with this incredible post. Look at this. This was June 1st, so just yesterday. Bill Cooper was actually, let's zoom in on that. Bill Cooper was actually raided by the government and was killed. Oh, getting great donations. Diego Nozalco, Flowing Brook, thanks for providing us necessary info to connect the dots. Diego says, thank you for your service, David. Do the Australian accent again. You're too fun. Thank you, mate. We get out there in the bush, and that's what we like to do, mate. We like to change it up for you a bit. You know, we got a bit of a duck-billed platypus attack, and he likes to stab you with his little spiky venom needles in his legs, and he just keeps going. Oh, my God, I'm burning myself. I got another cigarette right here. It's okay. I like to talk as an Australian sometimes, mate. The Australian military is probably the best in the world. No offense to anyone else. It's just my personal opinion. Oh, I just touched my mic, mate. That's not good either. Thank you for requesting Colin. All right, let's get back to being serious here. I just lost my cigarette. I hope it's not going to burn. It's fake. It's not real. Anyway, back to the slide. Here we go. Bill Cooper was actually raided by the government and was killed. He became convinced that he was being personally targeted by President Bill Clinton and the IRS. It's probably true. In 2000, he was named a major fugitive by the United States Marshal Service. That doesn't sound good. On November 5th, 2001, right after 9/11, they probably didn't want him talking about it and exposing it. They raided his home under the guise of charges of aggravated assault and then killed him in a quote-unquote shootout, which means they just shot him. That's what they're saying. He didn't shoot back. Alex Jones would eventually replace Bill Cooper as the new alternative media kingpin. And again, now Alex is under massive threat. And then they had this video of the whole thing. I don't know, post 321, I looked at that. It wasn't all that great, but I think that it's just more about, wow, like, look at what they just did to Alex. They're trying to completely destroy Alex Jones. And so they compare that to Bill Cooper. And again, you know, Bill Cooper wrote Behold a Pale Horse, and the show today is called Behold a Black Swan or Two. So there's two comms in a row that directly tie in with what I'm saying. And they did this after I posted on X, and I got the standard weekly intelligence community attack where somehow they want you to believe that they're in private communication with Shadow of Ezra and that he hates me and he thinks I'm insane, and they're actually mocking me about being abused. They're actually mocking me for sexual abuse, if you can believe that. Now, remember, if you do this stuff, if you mock people for something that they went through that is painful, you're basically asking karma to have it happen to you. So if you mock me about being eaten alive by reptilians, what is your future going to look like, you know? What is your future going to look like? This is a card that no child ever wants to draw. Can you see that? Or maybe I need to even go in closer. It says the pizza, okay? This is not the card you ever want to draw, folks. This is I did not want to eat pizza. You can ask my brother, my mother, my father. There were years where I said, I don't want to eat pizza at all. I hated it. And I think now it's because of this. Like, I think this is really true, folks. I think I've provided a very excellent case. I've provided you with tons of information, documentation, and proof. I'm not asking you to take my word for it, and I'm certainly not trying to read myself into Shadow of Ezra. I am responding to how many times they have endorsed my work, like we just saw. He mentions honor. He mentions, you know, he's going to keep going. And then they use the title of my show to talk about Bill Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. But every single time I post on Twitter, within seconds, you get this troll post, and I'm finally going to show you this because I don't want anybody to be influenced by this, and I want to expose how disgusting this is. My dream was about, again, I'm in a demon house, and the demons come out, and I have to expose them, and then once people see it, everybody understands. So it's very disturbing to me. I'm really not happy about this part of the show, but, you know, we're still within 3 hours. I wanted you to see this. What these guys actually, they're faking something. They're claiming they're having this communication with Ezra, but his voice is so ridiculously evil. It's so evil. I just can't even believe they're doing this. But like, wow, you guys, thank you for authorizing your own karma to get much, much, much worse. So I'm sorry I have to show you this, but this is what they did. I consider this to be basically demonic. Okay, so this is the post. I'm not going to give him the honor of his picture or his name. Oh, David is lying about his connection to Shadow of Ezra. And again, I want you to see, before we read all the rest of it, I'm going to zoom in on it. Supposedly what he's got here is, oh, well, it just says Shadow of Ezra, so, well, he must be talking to him. No, it's a Photoshop fake. I mean, come on. They're faking this stuff on Photoshop. They're pretending that they're in touch with this guy. And then, how did I catch it? Look at the top. It says 7 minutes. How did I catch it within 7 minutes? Most people do not know when I just posted, but I'll tell you, every time I post something, they come out with this instantaneously. It's like 7 minutes was actually later than when it first arrived. It's almost instantaneous. As soon as I come up with a post, they have to say, oh, well, Ezra Cohen hates David Wilcock. Shadow of Ezra, oh my God, he's lying. And it gets even worse. They mock me for being sexually abused. Whoa, look at this. So check this out. David is lying about his connection to Shadow of Ezra, 7 minutes. So then, supposedly, this is, I mean, why would the Alliance be texting this idiot anyway? David is live. Now he is saying you are watching him and using his info for your posts. It's like a whiny little, every week he keeps posting more and more. He keeps pushing. And then supposedly Ezra says, oh, thank you. Once again, I have nothing to do with David Wilcock. I don't even know who he is, TBH, to be honest. And then, oh, he sounds insane, WTF. And then the guy goes, oh, he is. He says he's King David. He says he was trafficked by people at Disney World. He was molested by reptilian aliens. That is just a few things. I mean, this is so evil and gross. And besides, you look at these little acronyms like TBH and WTF, he's never used those. Now, this came out before they did the thing of referring to Bill Cooper. This was before that. So if he just had this conversation that you're seeing right here, which is highly insulting, they're laughing at me. Ezra Cohen is supposedly saying that I'm insane. He doesn't know. How the hell would he not know who I am? I've been covering his material every week for 6 months. He doesn't know who I am? Really? All of these comms that are personalized to me, the thing about Crowley, the thing about Lam, I mean, it goes on and on. There's so many of them. I can't even begin to go through all of it. I told you about the dream I had with Hannibal Lecter, and then they had Trump say Hannibal Lecter like 20 times in a row. And then they're going to make fun of me. They're going to, oh, ha, ha, ha. You know, he's insane. He thinks he was molested. First of all, I never even said I was molested by reptilians. I was eaten by them. I think that's worse. If you're molested, you're at least not being, you know, ripped apart. You're not watching your hand getting eaten by a creature. You know, molesting is terrible, but it's not as bad as that. I mean, I'd rather take that over the other, you know, honestly. So, full point of fact, folks, this is the most disgusting, demonic insult I have ever received in my entire life. No one has ever mocked me for being raped before. And I can't even believe that this actually happened. It's so disgusting. And I asked this person, why in the world would you want to concoct a fake like this that was easily disproven within less than 24 hours with the William Cooper post and ruin your ascension? If you don't get to leave the earth now, you're going to get 25,000 more years in third density, and you're probably going to spend time in hell. And if you make fun of somebody getting killed by reptilians, guess what's going to happen when you go to hell? You're going to have to go through the same thing. You're going to experience all that karma for yourself. And so I ask you also this, if this really was the voice of Ezra, would any real soldier speak so disrespectfully about someone else fighting on the front lines? And I ask you this, in Nuremberg, how did the argument of, oh, I was just following my orders, how did that work out? Okay? And then here's another thing. For this guy who's out there trying to get people to watch his content, watch the videos, read the posts, why in the world would Ezra hand a stranger his own murder weapon? In other words, if he really did talk about me with this much hatred, it denigrates and demoralizes his entire platform. If you talk about somebody with that much evil, it's like, wait a minute. You don't have any credibility at all. You just quoted from the Bible. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. You're telling me that guy is, oh, well, he sounds insane. What the F is that? Oh, ha, 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 ha. I don't have any connection to him. Well, if he doesn't know who I am, then why are we having this conversation week after week? You telling me he's never watched any of these videos? And why do these guys have a conversation with him every week where he says, oh, I don't like David, I don't know who he is? Every single week this comes up again. And it's not like Ezra ever talks about insane topics like aliens and abuse. Well, this is what we just saw last week in a 2010 South Park episode entitled Sexual Healing, Obama Blames Aliens for Bill Clinton's Sex Addiction. Yeah, so right, he thinks this is insane. He would never talk about this stuff. And then again, it was 37 seconds long, and it tied in with this quote. They are the two true patriots, and obviously it's referring to me too. I'm one of those patriots we will never forget. Let these coming days be remembered in our history as a time we fought to recapture the republic from evil bad actors who have sacrificed good people for so long for personal gain. Fight the good fight and let justice be served. Another point I want to make on this is that Ezra has been very willing to drop names of certain individuals who he doesn't like, or at least says are compromised by the small country. And all you got to do is go back to TG on June 2nd, 2023. I don't want to name their names, but if you want to go back and look, he names 4 people. I've never been named in a negative way. So if you're going to, if this real guy was going to talk all this crap about me to some private individual, It denigrates all his credibility. That private individual can now destroy him. And isn't that what they want? They want to destroy him and me at the same time. Oh, he sounds insane. What the F? Well, no more insane than what you just posted a few days ago, dude. You're a hypocrite. So that's why it's not real. And so again, I've been doing these shows. I've been covering this for at least 6 months. He's had 6 months to make a negative statement on this. So this really did annoy me. And I want to read your honest comments on this. So now is the time to tell this guy who's writing this stuff and making these fake posts, what do you think about it? What do you think about, do you believe him? First of all, do you think this is real? And do you have my back? Do you have my support? I want to see what you guys have to say. So Laureen Renee says, ask Hollywood or the music industry, ask Disney or Nickelodeon. How can people watch when they know that stuff is going on about children? They've killed, blackmailed, or bribed, or been gang-stalked. I believe about 98% of your community loves you, David, says Anthony Wallstra. I, for one, can speak for myself when I say I can intuitively feel the truth and conviction within your words and testimonies. You are loved. So let's see what else we got, because I wanted to get on this particular topic. We love you and we've got your back, says Fuzzy Tiger Cat. Mike P., Scientific Mystic. He's been reading these comments. The fixation on hating David is not good for your soul. Michael Bacon says, we've got your back, David. Stay clean. Thank you. Magic Meat Bag. I wonder what that might mean. I think he should find a way to have a more productive life. Richard Osterman says, David, the negativity is their problem. They are judging themselves. You are a mirror. The judgment is all about them. Don't let it stick. He is an insane researcher, that's for sure, says Kyle Heather. JM says, I have your back, David. Please don't let it get to you. Susan Buckminster says, we support the light. I think David speaks in code. It can be misleading to some, but he is still being honest, says Urban Power List. Cato Comics says, I'm looking forward to the removal of bots and distractions from this world. Shall we please move on now? Britta Lauritsen says, stand your ground. Within Butterfly Garden says, David, have no fear. Give these trolls no energy. Karma will take care of it. Brando says, we got your back, David. SSP Beavis says, love you, Holmes. Maria Bajarnov says, I know you're telling the truth. These people are pure evil. Louise Boone says, nobody believes idiots like this. Don't focus on it. It brings you down. We love you. Mark J. Perry, got your back, dude. Always love you. Angela says, I know you're telling us the truth. Don't write checks that are going to bounce, says 40,000-yard Stairmaster. That's really funny. Got Magic Meat. That is too good now. Shaking my head. The Real Deal said this. David has his own followers, and knew years ago he could make money from it and got in trouble for it. That's a troll. Raymond Staples, thank you. We love you anyway, Raymond. Get ready for hell. You're going to love it down there. It'll be really warm when you get there. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But if you mock me for abuse, you are in big, big karmic trouble if you believe any of the stuff I'm saying is true. I will unfollow Ezra from X. I only followed because you suggested. No, it's not really him. That's the whole point. It's not him. It's fake. You got to remember. They just did it in Photoshop. It's very easy. It takes 5 minutes. He texted himself on his own phone, and he made it look like it was with this guy. Has nothing. I am totally in support of Ezra. He's had 6 months to hate me. He never has, and he has name-dropped other names, but not mine. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. Well, that same rule applies to shame. Love you, D-Dub, says Aeon Fibonacci. C. Price, we love you, David. Karen Hackbarth, we've always got your back. I mean, yes, you guys are awesome. He's a troll. Don't stop now. Keep going, David. The AI is a controlled operation. Scarlet Fire, it's true. Your consciousness affects the future. Group consciousness even more. Expect good, positive things. Charlie Barley says, I wish more people would actually start making and creating tech and stuff that changes reality now. All right. Well, and then Digital Soldier, yeah, that's what I thought, David. They're just trolls. Since 2020, you've spread light and positive messages, says Kellyanne, we love you. Magic Meatbag says it would be very easy to Photoshop that. Very, very easy. Eternal Scholar, yes, it was Photoshop. Xander Stevens 777, yeah, it's a guy taking the Shadow of Ezra banner and using it. Ask the troll if he needs a hug. Shadow of Ezra sounded good, but this new stuff makes me wonder if he's been hacked. Well, yeah, it's a fake troll message built in Photoshop. That's the whole point. Brizzy Z says everyone deserves love. The dark only attacks the highest light, says Lightspeed. David, continue shining. You're a beautiful light. Don't personalize other people's problems, says Russ V. Much love, many blessings. So thank you. I knew this is what was going to happen, but in case anybody gets taken in by this, they do it instantly every week after I make a Twitter post. and they want you to think he hates me and he thinks I'm insane. It's just not true. I provided evidence for all these claims, and it's also defamation because I never said I was molested by reptilians, only that I was eaten and tortured and killed, which is, you know, as I said, I'd rather take a round of sex romping before I'd take any of that other murder stuff. Anyway, let's go back to the slides. I think I've gotten my point made, and we're right at the 3-hour mark. So now I want to, you know, again, bring back the honor and duty quote from last week because there was something I missed. First of all, it says, we may only suggest the honor of propinquity to light carries with it the law of responsibility. We showed that propinquity means, you know, nearness in place, proximity. Okay, that's not the part that I needed to fix. It's the duty to refrain from contumely, discord, and all things which, when unresolved within, make way for workings, is happening to this woman, Greta Woodruw. So contumely is what we're going to focus on. I misinterpreted that word. I said it meant pride, but it doesn't. This entity may, if it is desired by the scribe, share our comments upon the working of the latter entity. So what exactly is contumely? I actually looked it up. It is an insulting display of contempt in words or actions, contemptuous or humiliating treatment. Well, that is exactly what this person is doing by making these fake posts. And again, they're trying to destroy Shadow of Ezra, because if he really said this, he's a Hannibal Lecter level psychopath who has no concern for other human beings. Why would he quote the Bible? So contumely is this insulting display of contempt, humiliating treatment, humiliating insults. That's what we're dealing with. And again, I'm not asking for unremitting approval. I'm not out here as an egomaniac. I read some troll comments on the show. The entity given constant unremitting approval by those surrounding it will suffer from a loss of the mirroring effect of those who reflect truthfully rather than unquestioningly. But that post is not true. That's not what Ezra really thinks, obviously, because they just posted this thing about Bill Cooper. This is not a suggestion to reinstate judgment, but merely a suggestion for all those supporting instruments. Support, be harmonious, share in love, joy, and thanksgiving, but find love within truth. For each instrument benefits from this support more than from the total admiration that overcomes discriminations. So again, it takes lifetimes to work off the karma if you make these violent statements. There was a thing in the Casey readings, and we're getting up to the 3-hour mark, so I'm going to have to wind this up pretty soon. But there was a thing in the Casey readings where they talked about people in the Roman Colosseum. And in the Roman Colosseums, they had people being eaten by lions. And there were people in the stands who were laughing as a little girl is out there getting her side torn open by a lion, and the lion starts eating her guts while she's screaming. It's really grotesque, but that's what happened. The Casey readings reported on this particular case and said that this person was still paying off karma 2,000 years later, that they had this debilitating condition in their right side, and most importantly, they had to become aware that they had hated this little girl, and they have to forgive themselves for hating her before the condition would be alleviated. So you can literally have thousands and thousands of years of bad karma just for making fun of somebody, and especially when somebody is putting their life on the line for the whole of humanity, like I am. The karma is so exacting. If you're getting a paycheck from Langley, and this is your job, and you're working from home, and you're just making these little troll memes, and you keep having this fake conversation with the fake Ezra that's really just you on another phone, you're texting yourself, and you do the whole thing in 5 minutes, and you post it as soon as I make a Twitter post. Karma is coming. The light at the end of the tunnel is karma. It's the oncoming train. So I would just ask you guys to, be aware. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to stop because you're going to keep doing it, but be aware of the costs. It is very, very, very expensive. And you will pay and pay and pay for doing this. When you drag people through the mud, when you try to create 34 indictments, there is a balancing effect. There is an immediate karmic repercussion caused by this. When you try to destroy Alex and you try to destroy his voice and it's all illegal, look at what's happening. He's got massive support now. And that doesn't change the fact, as Ezra posted, getting right up to the very end now, there are many people who have been compromised by various agencies. And he said it right here. He could have come after me, but he didn't. He's saying the real problem is these conservative influencers who support this organization. And that's not what I'm doing at all. That's not what I'm doing at all. I just told you where it comes from, the Rockefeller faction, and they were fighting for their interests in the Middle East. So now we're at the point where they actually did make a post about how he was threatened with complete shutdown. And he said, this is why they are going after Alex. And it's 36 seconds long, 154,000 views. This was when he was blasting the head of the small country, saying, I want you out there fighting yourself. I want your candy ass son out there fighting himself. It's a very intense clip. There's lots of profanity in it. And so there again, he went after one of the cores of the problem, of the Rockefeller faction. And he says this is why they went after him. This is why they came after him, because they don't want him creating this negative sentiment. And again, what happens in post 36? They give you 36 seconds. Here's another comm. If Trump failed, and if we failed, and if HRC assumed control, we as patriots were prepared to do the unthinkable. This is talking about actual kinetic force, which they're not going to do. Again, no war, no civil unrest, clean and swift. This was leaked internally and kept the delegate recount scam and BO from declaring election fraud in 2016. Dig deeper, missing critical points to paint the full picture. Oh my gosh, look at this. There is simply no other way than to use the military. It's that corrupt and dirty. It's the same message they reiterated yet again. Please be safe and pray for those in harm's way, which will include Alex and include myself. Look at the stuff they're saying about me online. These are psychopaths. They have no regard for me whatsoever, and they want you to think that he doesn't either. He would never talk like this. If you had that and it was really him and you could prove it, it would destroy his entire credibility. And of course he's not going to speak about another soldier that way. We either hang together or hang separately. So please be safe and pray for those in harm's way as they continually protect and serve our great country. So this is one of the ways you can protect me and help me is to order the 77 books for $70 at thedisclosure.com, put in the discount code REVELATION, and now we're all going to pray for the safety of everyone in our global peace meditation. So again, I want to thank you guys for being here today. Scarlet Fire says, if my sons did not want war, there would be none, said Gutel Snapper Rothschild, born in 1753, Frankfurt. Okay, so we're at the 3-hour mark. I don't want to wait too much longer. Let's just get me in position here, and we'll pray for all those in harm's way. So I'd ask you now to close your eyes, or you can watch me if you want. I'll do the little scrolly thing. We're only going to do 5 minutes, so just hang in there, folks, and then we'll read a little of your comments at the end. Please don't quit. We're only going to be in here for just a couple minutes, and if you just kind of calmly listen to what I'm saying and feel good, you're doing your part to create global healing. We got 5,000 people. That is enough to create the meditation effect. Bonnie Miller, thank you for donating. She says, thanks for keeping us in the loop on all this stuff. We love listening to you every Sunday now. I have a question. What do you think will happen with Trump in the upcoming election? Well, I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think that you have to worry about these indictments. I really believe everything's going to be fine. The Real Deal says, you are literally the top dog, David, the best since day one. Judd says, when you defend yourself from trolls, you're acknowledging them, even though you defend yourself. By acknowledging them, you bring them more into your awareness. Well, I feel like I had to say it once because this happens every week. It's been happening for months and months. Do you really think this guy's having a private conversation every week? And a couple weeks ago, we had somebody who believed it and said, is it really true that Ezra hates David Wilcock? No, it's not. So I just needed to make a statement. I'm not going to keep doing it. I expect them to keep doing this every week. But anyway, we're going to go into the meditation now, and then we'll read more of your comments. So, we already lost 150 people. Somebody doesn't want to do the meditation. Come on, you guys. Hang in there. We need the numbers. It really does make a difference. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to slow it way down. It's only going to be a couple minutes. I'd like you to take a nice deep breath now. Focus on your breathing. Just let yourself relax. Take a nice deep breath in. And then just let it go. Drifting more and more into the silence, into the place of pure peace. Deeper and deeper now into the stillness. Follow your breathing. We pray for the support and the healing of Alex, of Trump, of everyone in the alliance, everyone out there on the front lines fighting for truth, for justice, trying to make sure this happens in a very peaceful way with this minimized loss of life, if any. Clean and swift, no war. Feel yourself breathing more and more deeply, following the path of your breath, feeling that wonderful tingly relaxation, embracing the peace and learning that there is a way out of all this. There is a divine intervention that is already happening. The sun is speaking to us. Solar activity is at an all-time high. And we are going to see justice. We are going to see perpetrators being brought to arrest. We've been told an unprecedented number of comms in 1 week. This has never happened before. We've never seen so many of these communications that are so on the nose all in 1 week. This is very exciting. It means we're not at all waiting until November. It means that this is right around the corner. What you are about to see will demonstrate very shocking things, but it is necessary for the healing. So I encourage you to embrace yourself, reminding yourself that there is no reason to be afraid here. There is no reason to feel sad. It's all working out for the greater good. It will be okay, and you will be safe. The main thing is to authorize your own safety by following principles of forgiveness, love, compassion for yourself, for all those you care about, and for all those in the world. Imagining the world now surrounded with light, lifting up those in darkness, bringing about a true global healing. Thinking of ourselves as all interconnected. We're all one. There's only one of us here, and we are all eventually going to return to this place of beauty, this place of stillness, this place of love and peace, understanding and truth. Take this beautiful white light that you can now see, this living consciousness, this living energy, and let that energy flow through you. Let it flow through you as you breathe. Imagine that you are inhaling light. You are inhaling these healing photons, and they are transforming your DNA, bringing you to a new stage of human evolution, and bringing healing to all those in need of it, those in the Gaza Strip, those who are at war, those in all countries that are affected by this horrible problem we're going through right now. Pray for the healing of those who wish to perpetrate, of those who wish to sarcastically mock and make fun and lie and deny. They too will eventually have to go positive. They will receive healing, and they will be welcomed with us in open arms. For they have been through all of their punishments, and they will have been karmically restored once more. So again, let's take this energy that we're raising now in this beautiful meditation, surrounding the world with wonderful white light, healing energy that brings us back to the place we needed to be, that brings our planet to the next level of human evolution, so that there is nothing to worry about ever again, and we are made whole, complete, and pure. We authorize this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, and so it is. And now I ask that you bring your consciousness back to the room, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Oh, we lost a lot of people. We're down to, we're up to 4,600. We only lost 350. That's not too bad. Thank you guys for hanging in there. Most of you made it just fine. Oh, let me get back on. So let's read some comments on the way out. A Light says, I have to ignore my gang stalking. Sometimes I want to tell people what's happening. Patty Sklodowski says, may we collectively come together with love, light, truth, and positive vibrations, Mother Earth, and all living things who are here at this important time. Amen. Non-military says, Mr. Casey, so grateful for your Pete Peterson interview. It led me to be able to realize my connection with torsion field manipulation, mental and spiritual connections of geometric locations. Quantum Potential says, the New World odor is beginning to smell bad. Max Kammerer says, amen, David. Thank you for all your prayers. Eternal Scholar, election in South Africa. ANC only got 159 seats out of 400 in National Assembly. Crazy. Lauren Renee says, Ho'oponopono to Mr. and Mrs. Dark. Sam McIntyre says, thank you so much. Keep marching. Jay Skywalker, no idea what to prepare for in the immediate future. I would just say keep positive, stay positive. We are getting ready to see some big stuff. I would say, make sure you got your stored food, make sure you got your stored water on hand. Make sure you're ready for an internet blackout, have some board games or something to keep yourself entertained for a while, because you might have some time on your hands, or you might want to buy Michael Prophecies at thedisclosure.com. You guys have been really incredible. We hardly lost anybody on this, and I want to thank you so much for being here today. It is a true honor to be of service. Let's surround President Trump with support. Let's hope that this all is easily taken care of. Let's surround Alex Jones with support. He deserves respect. I respect him very much. He's never had me on the show. That's okay. I'm really happy about what he's doing. He's done so much for humanity. He's done so much more content than I ever have. And I want to thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you for all of your loving messages. It's been really nice to read your support. I did want to expose how they try to bring me down, how they try to bring Ezra down. They try to make it look like he hates me, which means people are going to hate him. It's not true, obviously. That's why they mentioned the whole thing about Bill Cooper right after I announced the title for this show. So we will be back, barring very extraordinary circumstances, next week. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know when the Black Swan events are going to happen. It could be really soon. I'm getting this stupid zit on my eye removed on Tuesday. So going to a dermatologist, I'm happy about that too. It is still visible when I don't have any, stage makeup on, but whatever. It's going to be gone. And I want to thank you guys for being here today. You are so awesome. You have my genuine support. Without you, I'm nothing. If nobody was watching this, it wouldn't be important. But you're watching because you like what you're seeing. You like my content. You support me. And I want to share that with you. I want to say how much I love you guys. I want to thank you for helping me. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. Thank you for your super chats. Thank you for all this amazing text that I get here in the sidebar. It is truly humbling. I am honored, and I also feel a duty to continue. So we will see you again next week. I am David Wilcock, and I want to thank you for watching today.